Hello, peeps. Here I go again with my hair. I swear I need to redo my hair. I just want to talk about my daughter Mariah's book and who she was. And she was 19 years old when she passed away. She had Ewing sarcoma cancer. It affects the bones and the tissue. She was diagnosed a few days after her birthday. She turned 17. A lot of the stuff back here was hers. Some of it, is our other kids' stuff too, but most of it's hers. We do that in memory of her. I mean, people do different things in memory of their loved ones, and that's what we do for her. And that painting on the wall behind me is something she created herself. I mean, she was good at painting. All our kids are good at art. But one of the things that Mariah loved doing was writing a book. Her dream was to have her book, The End of the Rose, published. And when she got sick with Ewing sarcoma cancer, it was metastatic, meaning it was all over her body. I had to tell her. On April 29th of 2022, Mariah went into the hospital, and she had lost a lot of weight. She went from being like at 173 to down to 23 pounds. It was from the October before till April. And we thought she was becoming like anorexic somewhat. And she went in to see the doctors, and the doctors told her, well, it's her potassium that's low, and because her legs were hurting. She wasn't able to eat too much either. So on April 29th, we went into the emergency room. I went with mine and my husband's. She's mine and my husband's daughter, and I went with Mariah and packed a backpack because I didn't know what was going to happen. And it ended up being a long stay. She was there from almost August of 2022. She had 14 rounds of chemo. But when she was there, I think it was about almost 7 or 8 of them that she had, because every 2 weeks she would have chemo, or once a week. It depended on, she would have it for 3 days or she would have it for a week. And those who know what chemo is like, watching loved ones go through it, or they've gone through it themselves, they know that it's not an easy thing. And when Mariah went into Presbyterian, that's where she first started going into, she was in the PICU unit, the pediatrics intensive care unit, and they did 2 biopsies on her back, back to back, a day after each other. She had a double port put in the right side of her chest. A double port is where it goes inside. It looks like a pillow, but there's metal, so it goes inside your chest, but then it's like linked to your heart. If I'm in the wrong for that, somebody should tell me, because I don't know everything, but I think that's what I read, that it's like kind of connected to the heart. And she had to be accessed. They had to take these needles that were on the lines of the IV. Basically, she had a double IV in her chest, and they would poke her with these needles that were maybe like that long inside of her chest, and she would know exactly which ones. She got used to that, but yet every time we saw her getting access, it hurts them. It doesn't matter how much lidocaine cream you put on them because you're supposed to put lidocaine cream on them, and if you do it before you go to the hospital, it's like an hour before. It's a lot better, but still put a little bit more before you go because it might take you like an hour to get there or half an hour. I don't know how long it is for people, in other countries or states, um, because there's people all over the world that have that. Um, it was hard telling her that she was sick. It was hard telling my husband, yeah, our oldest daughter Mariah, she's sick. And we had a feeling that she might have cancer, but we didn't want it to be true. We didn't know what type because, when you have that gut feeling, it's like, Um, I look like I'm talking to like the wall or something when I'm not. Um, um, it's devastating telling your child that they're sick and they have that look on their face like, what's wrong? You want to know, but yet you're like kind of hesitant, but you have to tell them. And I told her, Mariah, you have cancer. They think it's Ewing sarcoma cancer. And she was like, what's that? I said, it has to do, it affects with your bones and your tissue. And that's what they think. But when we transferred over to UNM Pediatrics, um, her biopsies were sent to Colorado and we didn't get them back for a few days. And they said, your daughter has Ewing sarcoma cancer. Mariah didn't want to hear that word, cancer. Because she knew, once people got cancer, they either live or die. And that's all she thought about. And during that year, in October, our niece Beatrice died of lupus. And Mariah and Beatrice were very close. And that's another devastation. Like, on top of Mariah being sick, we lost a family member that we're very close to. So Mariah wasn't really talking to people. And how could she, She couldn't go be in school with other kids. She had to be in the hospital a lot. And she had infections a lot, like, like UTIs. Some people think I shouldn't talk about that, but she ended up wearing a catheter, and because she couldn't feel when she went, number one. Sometimes she couldn't feel when she went number two either, because she had a huge mass on the right side of her hip, and it went all the way to her lower back. And this tumor was intertwined with her lower spine. She started getting tumors in her shoulders. I mean, the chemo was working for a little bit. And then the doctors were like, well, we can't do any more after 14 rounds. And I told them that's bullcrap. They set her up for radiation. She had 6 weeks of radiation. So every day for 6 weeks, she had to go into the hospital and get radiation on her big mass. And they got rid of that. And it caused damage to the right side of her hip. It's hard to talk about her, but people need to know. You people need to know what is going on with everything, because there's a lot of people that are in the same situation as her, like she was. Mariah didn't want to die. Who wants to die? Really? When you're young and You're supposed to have your life ahead of you. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to get married someday. She wanted to have kids. That was all taken. I would have rather Mariah gotten pregnant at 17 than to have cancer. I mean, that would have been easier to deal with. But when your loved one is sick and there's nothing you can do about it, or you are, and you feel like there's nobody there for you, they don't understand what you're going through. There's a lot of us going through the same thing. And a lot of us don't talk about it. I'm going to keep talking about Mariah. And people are going to know what she went through. Because, like I said, there's other people that are going through what she went through. Going through chemo, PET scans, CAT scans, MRIs, x-rays, so many times. So many times. She even had an epidural. Not an epidural. An enema, sorry. She had an enema. She had a suppository. I didn't see what an enema was before, and when I saw them do it to Mariah the last time she was in the hospital, which was 2024 May, around her birthday, she just turned 19, so it's like all the stuff she had to go through. Having an MRI and PET scan back to back, and then she's had an enema and a suppository because she was full. They stuck a tube down her nose just to flush her out. I mean, she was backed up in her stomach because she couldn't get all that waste out. I'm talking about poop, It was horrible seeing her get that tube in her nose, and some nurses were like, well, little kids don't mind it too much. Well, she's 19. And you expect her to have a tube down her nose? I wouldn't want one down my nose. And they gave her Ativan, and it was wearing off by the time they were going to get that tube in her nose. I wasn't told she was going to get a tube in her nose until later in the evening, when the doctors didn't even tell me, until this resident doctor came in. He's being all rude. So she wasn't feeling very well. She was just supposed to get the MRI and the PET scan done and then go home. She wasn't feeling too good. She had a blood infusion, a blood transfusion she had. When they have to give these kids more blood because they lose a lot of it because they're sick. They do that to adults too when they're sick. And at times, not everybody. She was my best friend. I know my husband's my best friend, but in a different way. I mean, she was one of those young girls you would want to hang out with. And she accepts everybody. But when she got sick, she felt embarrassed because she went from walking to being in a wheelchair. And then she got bedridden. She didn't want other people to see her that way. The last time Mariah went out to like a family thing was her 18th birthday at the park. And she went to my mom's for Christmas. But after that, she was getting bedridden, and it was hard to take her to her doctor appointments. So the doctors pushed her to be with Mariposa Pediatrics. She didn't want it. They said, well, if you don't like it after a week or so, you don't have to do it anymore. Well, they put her on medication like and a generic brand of Versed, which Versed is banned in our country. She was hardly awake. She'd be awake for like 5, 10 minutes and go back to sleep. I did an experiment with her because she would push the buttons because the IV little machine thing was connected to her with the medicines. And I was like, Mariah, don't push it. Don't push those. And she's like, why? I said, because you're more awake without doing it. And she's like, I didn't realize that. And I was like, yeah, you are. You're more awake and you're watching TV and spending time with your brothers and your baby sister, you know. She loved doing that, spending time with us. Me, my husband, and our 2 sons and our youngest daughter. So it's those moments you gotta cherish because you never know when it's gonna be gone. My mom gave Mariah the idea to write her feelings down. See, Mariah, she was not only was she diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer, metastatic, she was ridiculed, bullied, made fun of, threatened in school, all because these girls said she didn't look Spanish. And she said, I'm multicultural, stupid. And yes, I do have Spanish, so shut up. Leave me alone. They would make fun of the way she walked, the way she talked, the way she looked. She was beautiful. And I always told her that. My husband always told her that. She wasn't the type of girl that would just like flaunt herself, you know, how some of these young girls do. They just have to like show all their skin and, you know, like dress like basically kind of like a tramp, you know. I'm not criticizing, you know, a lot of people, but then there's people that have enough class, you know, they dress like that, but they do it in like a classier way. And she wasn't all about that. She loved watching WWE. Her favorite wrestlers were the Bellas, Alexa Bliss, Beth Phoenix, Edge, Bray Wyatt, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Bailey. She liked listening to different types of music. She liked Miley Cyrus. She liked Taylor Swift. She liked Fauzia. She liked Zoe Wees. She liked Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Tupac. I mean, she even liked Five Finger Death Punch. She liked Disturbed. There's other types of music she listened to that I wasn't aware of, but she was definitely a Miley Cyrus fan and a Taylor Swift fan. She listened to Mariah Carey too. In fact, I named her after her because there were times when I was struggling when I was younger, and Mariah's music got me through it. And she got Mariah through some times, just like Miley and Taylor Swift and Fauzia. I mean, there was just, you should listen to Fauzia, she's good. And Zoe Wees. The Climb was Mariah's favorite that Miley did. Her ultimate favorite, but she liked Jaded, she liked all kinds. I mean, she would love the new music that Miley's come out with. She'd be so happy that Miley did a Hannah Montana special. I know some people were not liking it, but I did because you actually saw Miley for Miley, you know, like her. Like, she was showing her true self. And I'm not saying she hasn't, it's just not a lot of people show their vulnerability to people. And I respect her for that. And I know she's gone through so much in her life. And Mariah always was a fan. And so am I. I appreciate You know what Miley's done? You know, I can't stop listening to Dream as One. Um, I I want to see the last Avatar movie. I gotta rewatch all of them now. Um, Great song. And then Mariah Carey with Almost Home. And I listen to that song a lot. And so does our newest daughter Maiden because it reminds her our daughter Mariah, you know? It's like it makes me want to cry. You know, whenever I watch wrestling now, it's like her favorites came back, like Alexa Bliss. Bray Wyatt passed away, you know, I think a year before she did. And she liked John Cena. Um, she liked Johnny Depp too. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean was one of her favorite movies, and then she loved Twilight. Um, Alice in Twilight was one of her favorites. In fact, she loved reading the books. She loved Harry Potter. People have different opinions about Harry Potter, but um, she was a typical young girl, you know. She would laugh, sing, dance, write. She wrote some songs. I can go to her and talk to her about anything. And, you know, she can come to me. We always told our kids that. You can always come to us. Even if it makes us mad, you can still come to us no matter what. Because we love you. And we taught our kids how not to hate other people. Especially if they're different. It's like we're all different in our own ways, right? But yet we're so similar. I mean, if you cut our skin off of us, we would all look the same. And she would laugh when I said that. And she said, that's true. I mean, she used to love watching The Simpsons and Family Guy and American Dad. We would laugh because of Roger, because of his different alter egos. And she liked watching Melissa McCarthy movies. Her and our older son, Steven, would always say, Mom, you remind us of Melissa McCarthy because of the way your personality is. I wish I was her. I mean, she's got a lot of talent. And she's a beautiful person, but I'm not her. And that's a huge compliment, you know? And I think those people that act and sing and do different things because whenever those people she saw them on TV or movies or listened to their music, it inspired her to keep going. And getting to her book, The End of the Rose, my mom gave her the idea to write things down, how she felt, or what she's going through, what she has. She ended up writing The End of the Rose. She was working so hard on it. Didn't matter how much pain she was in. She put a lot of her into it. And it's got like medieval till now, like mystery, like what's going on. And so many people said to me and my husband, your daughter Mariah wrote a great book. Even though it's a short story. You know, I see her book every day. And I look at it. My husband looks at it and it's like, our kids look at it and it's like, she's still here. And I don't wish for other parents who have children, all their kids still. I don't wish it on them to be in this group of people that have lost their kids. That's not a group you want to be in, especially if you love them. Because they're so precious. I mean, you're supposed to go for them, right? I mean, why can't she be here to enjoy her book? Why? Why can't she be able to read it and show people how special she is? How is her dream for others to read it so they wouldn't feel like they're alone? No matter what they're going through, whether they're being made fun of, threatened, or they're sick, if they're alone, at least they know somebody's there. It would make them smile. That was her dream, to have her book published in City Book Publishing, Make a Wish, and this woman named Monica who helped her edit her book even after she passed. We finished editing her book like she wanted. She should be here enjoying that book. She should be showing people, this is my book. This is the story I wrote. This is my story. And I promised her that people would know about her book, know about her story, and they're going to know the struggle she went through, the pain, the suffering. See, when Mariposa Pediatrics had the nurses coming in and out of her home just to make her comfortable, she didn't want that. 2 weeks after, she said, no, I've had enough. The doctor said, no, we can't take you off those hydromorphone or the generic brand of Versed because you'll have withdrawals. Because somebody in that pharmacy they have heightened up one of the medications and it made her sleep constantly. How is she supposed to be comfortable when she's sleeping all the time? When she wasn't spending time with us. When she couldn't play her Switch or, play the PlayStation. Play different games she loved. She loved Mario Brothers. She loved Disney Dreamlight Valley. She loved playing that. Sims. She loved playing this other game. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a fighting game. She loved Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was one of her faves. She loved playing wrestling games. If she didn't get her book published, because that was one of her wishes, she wanted to get like a game system and, play more games. And she wanted to meet some famous people, but that's hard to do. She wanted her book to get out there to Miley Cyrus and Alexa Bliss and Mariah Carey and Taylor Swift. I don't know if they would ever watch this, You never know if famous people are watching you or not, but at her funeral, we played Almost Home by Mariah Carey. We played The Climb. And we played a song by Papa Roach. Um, Somebody was driving by our home. I get distracted very easily because I have ADHD. Who doesn't? We played Mariah Carey Almost Home. We played Miley's The Climb. We played Papa Roach, the song that Papa Roach did, and Leave the Light On. And also Three Doors Down. It was Goodbyes. Um, One of my sisters said, "Wow, those songs are like gut wrenching," and I'm like, "That was Mariah, you know." I can say Mariah was a little bit like Miley, you know. There was like she liked to dress up, but then there's a side of her that was so laid back. When she was little, we would watch Hannah Montana. She would like throw little fits, but when she would see Hannah Montana, she'd just sit there. She was just a little toddler just watching it. And she said, no matter what Miley goes through, she's a human being. I mean, there's people that judge her, but they don't really know her. I mean, she looks like she's a good person. And I'm sure it's hard to be in the limelight, because her dad's famous and she became famous. It's like, I mean, Miley can sing. I mean, I saw a video of her singing Just Like a Prayer by Madonna. And I was like, not many people can like hold their own with that one because you gotta have some pipes. I mean, like there's a tone, with certain songs. And me and Mariah saw that video and we're like, wow, mom. I was like, yeah, I think I love Madonna's music. I do. I appreciate Madonna because she's like one of the queens. But I'm like, Miley, no offense to Madonna, but she outsang that song. That she made that song her own. I mean, Miley can sing. I mean, she's got some pipes on her, just like Pink and Kelly Clarkson, And when Miley won a Grammy, she won 2 Grammys. I was so happy for her because I was like, it's about damn time. She's so underrated. She's got a great voice. Her and Kelly Clarkson and Pink, it's like, how come they're not being nominated? There's so many singers out there that don't get nominated. It's pathetic. I mean, Zoe Lees, she's a great singer too. And people are all about Beyonce this, Beyonce that. No offense, but Beyonce is so overrated. And if people actually listen to others who said it instead of judging them, she's a good singer. She is. She's a good actress. But when you hear somebody like Mariah Carey, you hear somebody like Whitney Houston, you hear somebody like Jennifer Hudson, you listen to people like Miley or Christina. I was gonna call her Christina Applegate. I love Christina Applegate too. Christina Aguilera. You listen to Zoe Lees. You listen to. I'm naming all these people that have these pipes. You know what I mean? And Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston paved the way for Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey paved the way for others too. There were so many great women singers. Even Queen Latifah. She can sing and rap. She can sing, rap, and act. That's pretty impressive. Miley can sing and act. She's great. Britney Spears can sing, but over the years when she started getting more controlled, her voice started to change. And when you actually hear her sing, Mariah like that song. Um, um, what's that song? Not Yet a Woman. You know what song I'm talking about? Um, it's a good song, and that's one of Mariah's favorite songs because she was still young, but she wasn't not yet a woman. And whenever I hear it, it just makes me think, she's always gonna be 19. 21st birthday is coming up. I mean, she should be here. When are people gonna make a machine to where you can actually talk to your loved ones that are on the other side? Whatever you believe in. They're in another dimension. It's like, when is somebody gonna do that so we can actually hear their voices again? I got some videos of Mariah. Our youngest daughter Maiden, she had a video of Mariah saying "Happy Birthday, Maiden," and she was telling Maiden to say "Happy Birthday, Maiden." And her tablet was on my husband's bed, and I didn't realize it, and my knee went on it and cracked it. It still kind of works, but I can't get to where that video is. It wasn't saved to like Google or anything, so I don't know if I can get that off of there or not. But we got made in another tablet, and it's just like the same one, but you can't get those videos back. I got other videos, of her birthdays, her 18th birthday, and when she turned 17, when she came home. I just, it hurts not having her here. And all we got is her book and her clothes, her dolls. I mean, Maiden plays with her dolls now. She was into LOL dolls. She was into Shadow High, Rainbow High. There's a video that she did on her YouTube channel. I don't know if people seen it. It's like Lola something, because a lot of people do use that name, but it's with these LOL dolls or Monster High. She loved Monster High. And before she passed away, she was telling me, my husband, that she wanted her room to go to Maiden. All her stuff would go to Maiden, especially her dolls, because she wanted her to play with them like she used to when she was her age. Mariah loved collecting dolls. I would do anything just to have her back. I'd do anything. So, if any of you guys want to buy this book, our son Steven's name is on it. Stephen Archibeque, right there. He illustrated this book. He helped Mariah with it. There's a picture of her in it. That's her. That was her. There's another picture of her. Oops. What am I doing here? That's her. That's her when she was 16. The other one is her graduation picture, and she said she wanted her graduation picture in it. So we made sure she got what she wanted, you know? It's a good book. And it does make you feel like you're not alone. Because at times, you know, daughter, we do feel like we're alone. Maiden's in sleeping in her room, but she's having a hard time sleeping in there. Mariah would tell her, you know what? It's okay. There's no monsters in their room. They'll protect you. There's a acknowledgments in here that she acknowledges me and my mom and our family. And there's a dedication to her. This book, The End of the Rose, dedicated to Mariah for all she went through having Ewing sarcoma cancer. How Mariah fought and never gave up. Mariah wrote The End of the Rose to inspire those to feel that they are not alone. She has, it's okay to be different because our differences are what makes us who we are. My son also did this drawing. I need to fix the light over here. He's done all kinds of drawings. I mean, I've done some drawings myself, but not that good. Not that good. It's a great book and you should buy it. I mean, it's on Amazon, it's on Walmart, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on eBay. I don't know why eBay is charging more than $20. But in other countries, it's selling for different. So I think it's in the UK. I'm not sure because I did see, you know, different stores online, but it's worldwide. And Mariah wanted this to inspire others. And even though she's not here, I know she would thank all those people for reading it and appreciate it. And I know she would want me to tell people about her book and how inspiring it is because it's inspiring me to she graduated while she was sick. 2023 she graduated high school. We went to her graduation. It's kind of horrible, you know, too much noise in the gym and stuff. But me and my husband are very proud of her. Our older son is too because he graduated a year before. And you know, that's her legacy, is her book. And I told her because she wanted to go to WrestleMania, and I said, would you rather have a once in a lifetime thing or would you rather have something for a lifetime? And that's when she decided she wanted her book published because she was like, I want my book published. So Make a Wish. So that was a very unique wish. And City Book Publishing was happy because they read her book and were like, yeah, we need to get this book out there, you know. She didn't get to see her book published, but she knew it was. She was excited because she knew other people would want to read it. And it's taken me a while to read it again because every time I try reading it, it's like hard. I mean, that was her baby. I mean, like, I don't know many 19-year-olds that have written books and they're authors, you know? And she said, I'm not an author yet. I said, yes, you are. You've written how many stories? She's written so many different stories on her Chromebook and her tablet, and she has some songs on her tablet. She actually has the next book, but she only got to 4 chapters. And I don't know how to incorporate that with this book, The End of the Rose. But the ending is just, I don't know how she came up with all this stuff. I mean, she likes world history, different types of cultures, and the character on the book, her name's Carl Anika Medanoche, Lady Midnight. And she went through a lot with some girls, you know, who she thought were her friends. Something happens to her, and it goes like centuries later, like, what's going on? There's a lot of like light flashing in a museum, and it's interesting. I have to say, a lot of people say her book's very interesting, and we're also trying to do merchandise for it. You know, we don't have the money for that right now. But if anybody has any ideas on how to do merchandise, or if they want to help us do that, um, I'm not asking for money for people. I'm just saying, if you guys have any ideas, like, what is like the cheapest way to go about it, you know? Because we want to do shirts, hoodies, hats, socks, shoes, costumes. You know, like what a lot of people think of, bracelets, um, also gloves. I, you know, Mariah like using gloves. Like, you know, there's people whose hands hurt, and there's some gloves that do help, but um, she was always looking at other people that had disabilities and had illnesses because of what she went through. And there's some of us that have learning disabilities, and our youngest daughter has microcephaly. Anybody has a child that has microcephaly, you know what I'm talking about. Her brain's smaller than an actual 6-year-old. It's basically the size of a, you know, a baby. Um, she's kind of petite. I have videos of Maiden. She's really cute. And Tyler, you know, he's done some videos on my YouTube channel because I filmed them, and they were just trying to be funny. And that's what you gotta do with your kids. You know, you gotta love them and have, you know, fun with them at times. You know, the hardest thing to deal with is Mariah died right in front of us, and I woke up that morning of August 12th twice, and I went to check up on her. She had ketamine the night before. I didn't give it to her, the nurse did, and I didn't know much about ketamine. She just said it was for pain. That's all I knew. And she was on that for, I think, a week. She was taking that, and she was on gabapentin, duloxetine, hydromorphone, said, oxybutyrin for her bladder. I had to flush her out, you know, her catheter and stuff at times. She went through hell, and maybe I should tell you what she went through, because I woke up on August 12th that morning because I sat next to her until 4 o'clock in the morning. My husband's telling me I need to go to bed so I can get some rest. I was like, no, I got to stay with Mariah out here because she was on an ottoman bed, you know, because the ottoman turned into a bed because she couldn't go upstairs. And our son Steven was sleeping right behind her on a couch. I went to go check on her, and she had her blanket rolled up into a ball on the right side of her. I was like, what the heck? And she had her oxygen off. It's like, what was going on with her? I don't know if anybody's experienced this. But if they have, you know, I want to know, like, what happened in your situation. It's very important to get to know what other people, the situations are, because it's like, okay, am I alone in this? You know? But her blanket was rolled into a ball, so I covered her. I put her oxygen back on, and I said, "I love you, Mariah." And she said, "I love you, Mom." Something was telling me something. I woke up at 8 o'clock. I went to go check on her. Oxygen was off. Blanket was rolled into a ball again. And she was like this. And she had tears coming down her cheek. She had a black dot in her left eye above her pupil where the white is. She was breathing. Her heartbeat was strong. And I was trying so hard. I was like, "Come on, Mariah, come on." I know some people don't want to hear this, but I don't care because there's so many of us going through the same thing. A few days before, her nurse got her one of those things to suck the bubbles out of her mouth because she had bubbles. She lost so much weight. Her urine started turning like an apple juice color. And then it turned into like bleeding, like blood. Doctors didn't care. I told them that her heartbeat was 153 beats. "Oh, your daughter's heartbeat's strong. It's okay. It's normal." I'm like, "That's not normal. 153 beats? Really? It's beating fast." And Mariah complained of her right side hurting. She wanted to go into the hospital. The nurse told her, well, the doctor said there's no point because they can't give you the meds that we're giving you. Mariah was not in the right frame of mind to make her own decisions, but they said because she was 19, it was her choice. She didn't have a choice. Those doctors took her life, and they know it, and they don't care. She was doing good when she was in the hospital. I have pictures of her. In fact, I've shown a picture of her that day we were going to leave. She had her beanie hat on, and she was laying in the hospital bed waiting to go home. She was a little out of it. And Child Life, which helps families, they help with like gift cards for gas and going to McDonald's or whatever, and help the families like wash their clothes or whatever the kids need, like toys. There's also a foundation. It's the Orange Foundation, and it's through this other foundation where the kid can get $100 when they have cancer, and there's also $500 they can give the families to help them out. It's part of that same foundation, but it's a different name. Can't remember. I'm sorry. Then there's the Go for the Golden Foundation that UNM Pediatrics has, where kids who are in the hospital sick, they can order anything from Amazon. Toys, Mariah ordered a Switch and she got a game. She didn't have to pay for it. They did. So if you're there, Go for the Gold, sign your kids up for Make-A-Wish because they have this paperwork that they have families sign for Make-A-Wish and Go for the Gold. You sign that and it will help you. And also Child Life will help you because they're good people. And that's what that funding does. The Cancer Fund helps those kids. Pediatrics funding helps those kids. And they only get 1%. And some of you wonder why. Don't they have enough funding? No, they don't. Because if they did, they would have cures for kids. They would have enough stuff for these kids. The nurses run out of medicines for these kids. They run out of pull-ups. They run out of diapers. They run out of equipment. They run out of clothes. They run out of so many things for these kids. Medicines to help with pain. I mean, some of these medicines even make these kids sicker, and they go by the same regimen for years, and they need to change it. Chemo medicine is not going to help fight Ewing sarcoma cancer. It may shrink the tumors, but eventually they'll get bigger. And so many kids have their limbs and their ribs and whatever taken out. Why do they need to go through that? Why? Mariah's doctor, her main oncologist, pediatric doctor, said, "Oh, we can do surgery, but we can't do surgery here because in other states can do it because we don't have enough team for that. But they can cut her in half, and not only will she have to be on a catheter for her pee, she would have to be on a catheter for her poop for the rest of her life, being cut in half. And it's likely she won't survive the surgery. And it doesn't mean it'll take away the cancer either. I wasn't going to put Mariah through that. My husband wasn't either. I couldn't do it. I was like, no, I'm not putting Mariah through that. No. Risking her life like that, making her even more miserable. I mean, how many limbs, how many body parts do these kids have to lose just to survive? When it's going to make them survive for a little bit, but then eventually they might get Ewing sarcoma cancer again because it's not fully gone. Because these doctors don't know what they're doing. There's no cure for it. If they put more funding into science, and I know some people are against that, I don't care. If there's more funding for science, the science people are trying to figure it out. If they can stop this protein that everybody has in their body, especially if they get Ewing sarcoma cancer, they can cure people. Hello. Instead of putting money into freaking wars and killing innocent people. I think it's pathetic that some people in our military are following Trumpkin. Really, that's a disgrace. You want to follow somebody that wants to kill innocent people? Fine. Go live on your own island and stay there. Because you're not going to kill innocent people anymore. And nobody's going to stand for it anymore. People are fighting and standing up because they're sick of it. They're sick of innocent people dying. They're sick and tired of people getting sick. They're sick and tired of people getting cast aside. You're casting aside people that have illnesses. You're casting aside children that have illnesses. You're casting aside kids that are being, raped and murdered, and, you're casting aside homeless people. You're casting aside people that have addictions to alcohol and drugs. Maybe if you actually created a rehab center for kids, there's kids that are on drugs, like teenagers, stuff like that. There's not many rehabs for that, and they need to do that. They need to do rehab for everybody that have addictions like that, or any type of addictions. Put money into that. And then put them into a program how to get their life straight. Like get a home or, get on their feet. Instead of judging them, you should also make homeless shelters a little better instead of making them run down. You should make them more homey and stuff like that. Do something to help people instead of standing back and watching them suffer, because you keep doing that, it's not going to stop. And quit putting people that are doing drugs, like they're on alcohol, meth, heroin, coke, crack, even prescribed drugs can be addicting. And then people talk about marijuana. You know what? That's not man-made. It's a plant. It's been here for centuries. In fact, it came from Asia, which I thank you, Asians, for doing that. Appreciate it. Thank you, because I have to admit, I do the vapes. I don't care. I don't care if people judge me for that, because there's a lot of people out there that do the same thing. I mean, for pain, anxiety, even to help them eat. When I put oil on Mariah, her pain was not that bad. It helped her. I miss her every day. My husband misses her. Our kids miss her. and to see her die right in front of us. She shouldn't have gone through that at 19 years old. She shouldn't have. Why do our kids have to keep passing away? Why do our loved ones? There's no cure for lupus. There's no cure for dementia. There's no cure for Alzheimer's. There's no cure for chronic fatigue syndrome. There's no cure for human sarcoma cancer. There's no cure for AIDS or HIV. There's no cures for anything. It's just certain things have medicines to slow it down. Mariah was on etoposide and it was slowing it down. It was working, but then they stopped her from taking it because when she ended up in the hospital, I didn't have it with me. You have to have it in the refrigerator. They didn't give me power of attorney or my husband of her, and she died. And every day I'm going to feel guilty for that. She should be here. She should be here celebrating her book. She should be here graduating college soon. She should be here getting married, having kids, or either way, having kids, getting married, which way it comes. Chemo took that from her. She couldn't have no kids because it took, basically she couldn't have a period anymore. It's sad, when they're so young and so much taken from them. She inspired me to go back to school last year. I was trying to do industrial design, but then I changed my major to illustration. My second semester of that is almost over, and I'm passing, and my husband's helping me with that, paying for my school, and it's expensive. Financially, can only pay for so much, but when you're on a fixed income, only so much you can do. They didn't even give me money to buy supplies. My husband had to buy the lesser ones because we didn't have enough money for it. And I'm over here trying to graduate. And, when people are trying their best to go to school and they don't get enough funding for supplies and they can't afford it, how do you expect them to finish? At first, financial aid took my financial aid away. And then I told them my situation. My husband has a TBI. He was in a bad car accident 9 years ago. Almost lost him due to somebody else. And he's on, what a lot of people are on, SSI, whatever, And some people are like, well, they're lazy. No, they're not. When they have different illnesses or disabilities, you have no right to judge. You don't. You're not in that position, are you? But those who get SSI, sitting on their asses at home, they're judging those that have disabilities and illnesses because they have SSI, Social Security. Really? There's people that work have Social Security, and some of them judge. It's like Mariah got that, but when she passed away, the families don't get it, she has a dog, Olaf, they could have given it to him, to pay for dog food and all kinds of stuff for him. But no, I did get my financial aid back. And I'm continuing on with my schooling. Some days I just want to quit because I'm like, Photoshop is kind of hard because I know if Mariah was here, she would have figured it out. Like, that's how smart Mariah was. She would be laughing at me like, Mom, if she was here, we'd be going to college. And she said, Mom, when I graduate, I want to go You ever want to go back to school? We should go to college together. And she loved watching that Melissa McCarthy movie. And whenever I watch it now, it just makes me cry because it's like, that was taken from me. It was taken from my husband and our other kids. I mean, it's not fair. She should be graduating college this year. You know, she should be having fun with her friends. She should be doing what she loved doing, like writing and singing and dancing, and she loved acting. I mean, and that's where, some of these famous people she looked up to, like Alexa Bliss from wrestling, because she was laid back. She is laid back. And she's not like dressing all like fancy or anything. And we watch Total Divas. I show the wrestlers behind the scenes. It's kind of funny. And we love watching that. We love watching Mike and Molly. We love watching the Golden Girls. We would even impersonate some of the people we'd watch in the movies, like, Johnny Depp with Captain Jack Sparrow. I mean, my nephew Jackson, he loves Jack Sparrow. Which I think Warner Brothers messed up for screwing Johnny Depp over. I'm just saying. And if Disney's working with Johnny Depp, keeping it secret, that's fine, but, some say that Disney owes him an apology. Well, how do we know they didn't give it to him? I like watching Disney stuff. Bluey, if anybody's seen Bluey, it's such a funny show. I didn't think I was going to like it because, it's a kid show. But it's pretty funny, like what they do, like what they say. It's like you can totally relate to that show, even though it's a cartoon. It's like it's funny. And our youngest daughter Maiden and our youngest son Tyler watch it. Our older son Steven watches it too. Yeah, being 23, it's kind of funny. He's so good at his art, and him doing that cover for her book, The End of the Rose, it's impressive, And I told City Book Publishing, I was like, I want Steven's name on there because he illustrated it. Can you please do that? And they did. They were nice enough to do different things and make sure Mariah's book was right. But she wanted a hardback, and they said it was a little expensive, but eventually it's going to be in a hardback. Steven wants to do a book with pictures in it. He's trying to figure out how to get that, the drawings that he wants to do for it, and also be able to get that book in Braille because Mariah wanted everybody to read it. Not just a certain type. She wanted everybody to read it. Kids in middle school can read it, but I wouldn't suggest elementary school read it because they wouldn't understand some of the words in it. And it's there's something that's a little violent in it, and you're just gonna have to read the book, and it's very special that Mariah left this book behind, and eventually people are going to know who she was and what her book is about. And it's basically her, expressing how she felt, like being ridiculed and threatened in school, and her anger while she was being sick. And it's a good book. I could read you the first page of it. It's really cool writing, And she made sure that inside the book the words, were big enough for people to see it because we wanted people to see the words, because a lot of us can't see the words. But a prologue. A peculiar young girl decided to venture into a forest on a soulless night when all things were broken and not found. Near a river, she discovers a magical aura surrounding a mysterious abandoned cottage. She leaves the forest and returns home, but she plans to go back to the forest another time. She returns to her royal kingdom and is ostracized because she's different from the other children. But even the purest hearts can be darkened, and even the light within them can turn into something evil, maybe even a creature so powerful you'll never sleep again. This is where the story begins. In the royal kingdom there lived a girl named Caro Anika Medianoche, but for short most people called her Caro. She was often playing in the forest when the gorgeous sunlight hit her beautiful glowing skin, running and exploring as if her brown eyes were caught in the haze. Just as a child normally would. She has lovely black hair that flows behind her delicately like waves. She found a rather intriguing iridescent rose and took it home with her because she was rather fond of it. One of the generals of the Knights Round Table struck her because she was accused of practicing witchcraft. Instead of being hit on the hand, she was struck in the face with the sharp spikes on the knight's armor that pierced like razor blades. The pain eventually subsided, however, she was left with a scar on forehead that reminded her of that shameful day. Carl, at about 9 years old, ran off into the forest and discovered a house. A very strange house that was dark and gloomy, which stood near the river bank. She would often visit that area because it reminded her of her mother's numerous stories about the land that once settled in silence there. As Carl walked onto the black, dark, and creaky porch, she found a small collection of magical items. She passes the magical items by and curiously opens the front door. Carl stood in terror and stared at the woman who suddenly appeared before her. The small woman was wearing a white dress with navy blue flats, and her gray and white wavy hair was hanging loose at her shoulders. "Who are you?" the woman asked. Carl hesitantly began saying, "My name is—" as the woman interrupted her. Never mind. I know exactly who you are," the woman explained. "You do?" Carl asked confusedly. "Of course I do," the woman said as she looked down at her cauldron. "No need for introduction, my dear. But I am Vladimir. Many have tried finding this place because they believe I could assist them in solving their problems. But they all failed. But that's not important right now," she says. "Okay then, who am I?" Carl asked. "The real question you should be asking is who you will become," Vladimir says, pointing her skinny finger at her. "I don't understand," Carl says. "Child, I see dark forces in your path, but your faith will not change. For those whom you thought were your friends will later on betray you," Vladimir foretold her as she disappeared. As Carl left the house, she was confused by what she had just witnessed. She never had seen anything like that before. Vladimir was there, and then she was gone. Just like that, as years passed, Carl's 19th birthday was upon her, and she was betrothed to a prince named Alistair Valentine. Alistair, who was 19 as well, was from the northern kingdom where Carl was from. Alistair's blonde hair, broad shoulders, and charming smile entranced the damsels of the kingdom. They were also jealous of Carl, who was soon to be his bride. She didn't let that stop her from marrying the prince. On the night of the party, just before the wedding, a particularly incensed girl named Bethany approached Carl and purposely spilled her goblet filled with dark red wine all over Carl's dress. "What was that for?" Carl explained, as she was furious at the girl for ruining her dress. "That was for stealing my prince," Bethany retorted. "He wasn't yours to begin with, and besides, he chose me because he loves me for me, and unlike you, I'm not marrying him for the money. I'm doing it because—" Bethany cut her short. "Because you have no choice. and you don't love him. You only care about yourself. You may have had your coronation today, but don't act like that will last long. Bethany smirks and brushes past her, shoving Carl out of her way. Carl took a deep breath and headed to her room to get away from the party for a bit. Carl sat on her bed, thinking, as she heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in," Carl said. As she opened the door, to much surprise and confusion, Carl is immediately surrounded by Bethany and her friends. "Hey, I wasn't aware that you were coming. Alistair must have summoned you to check up on me. He's always making sure that I'm okay." Carl paused for a minute as the damsels then began to corner her. "What are you all doing? Why are you trying to corner me, and why do you have your hands behind your back, Bethany?" she questioned in fear. "I told you, your reign will not last," Bethany said. "Alistair never asked us to check on you. Instead, we came to end things between you and him," she said as she was pulling out a knife. "No, I'm not going to let you. I will tell Alistair and the whole kingdom what you're trying to do," Carl asserted, trying to escape. "I'm afraid that's not an option," Bethany says, pushing Carl down on the hard floor of the kingdom. "Get her," she ordered as her friends started cutting Carl with sharp knives. Bethany and her friends kill Carl and leave her lifeless body with blood pouring from the wounds and blood dripping from her eyes. Bethany runs to Alistair, letting him know of the tragedy, deceiving him as she tells him how she went to check on her and found her bloody body. She describes to Alistair how Carl lay dead on the floor of her bedroom, her eyes filled with nothing but blood, her dress with blood stains that cover the dark red wine Bethany spilled, and her face with cuts and slashes all over her body. Alistair ran upstairs to his bride's room. He was devastated to have found Carl gone. His heart broken too, knowing his one true love was murdered. "Who could who could have done this to you?" Alistair asked, as tears began to shed from his face. The knights rushed into Carl's bedroom and found her lifeless body on the hard floor. Near her closet is Alistair's broken-hearted arms. Carl's father rushed upstairs to see what all the commotion was. He was distraught to see his daughter's lifeless body in Alistair's arms. He left without his daughter to go make plans for her burial. A day later, the knights and Carl's father buried her next to her mother by an oak tree. The oak tree was a special place for her. Her mother and her family were where they enjoyed picnics until the shade. Oh, under the shade, sorry. They would even all tell each other stories beneath the moonlight and the oak tree. For Carl, it was a tradition to have small get-togethers for her family by the oak tree. But sadly, those traditions faded away after Carl's mother was killed, or so many have thought. The traditions vanished even more after poor innocent Carl was killed in cold blood. It indeed made it harder for the kingdom to bring back those traditions without Carl and her mother to celebrate them, gracefully knowing that both had perished. Late in the evening, Vladimir crept into the cemetery and left with Carl's coffin in which she lay. Vladimir took Carl to her house and healed Carl with the exception of her cuts on her face. The cuts turned into scars and the blood in her eyes remained as her eyes glowed. As Carl awoke with such confusion, she wondered what had happened to her. Vladimir observed her and put a crown with chains that lingered on Carl's head. "You may be wondering how you got here, how you're alive, and what happened. Well, let's forget about that for your story is not yet over," Vladimir expresses, handing Carl a mirror. She gazes into it as she lifts her once white but now black veil from her face and drops it as the, she tries to scream. However, nothing comes out as her voice box has been damaged, and the mirror shatters all over the floor. "I know those girls betrayed you, and I can feel your pain, but listen. What if I told you that I can take all your pain away if you will allow me to fix what has been lost and broken?" Vladimir questions. Carl looks at her with confusion as she is handed a blood-red rose from Vladimir. "Put this rose in the cauldron, and it will show you your future and your path," Vladimir says. Carl walks over to the cauldron and drops the rose into it. She views the cauldron, trying to see her future without success. Disappointed, she looks down. What bothers you, child? Vladimir asks while walking over to the cauldron and observing. Well, this is odd. I guess only the living can see their future with a blood rose. Suddenly, a necklace with a moon on it appeared. Well, go on, take it. The necklace chose you, Vladimir says. Carl takes the necklace from the cauldron and puts on a red jacket. Vladimir hands her. Carl puts her veil down over her face and cries, but no sound comes out of her voice. There's one more thing I'm forgetting. That necklace has many abilities, and one of them being that you'll be able to speak once more and take those who wronged you and destroy their hearts. Now go and take this blood rose and remind all of them who you are. Lady Midnight, Vladimir says, disappearing yet again. Lady Midnight vanishes in the night, soon after, looking to get revenge on those who wronged her. Little did Vladimir know that eventually karma would come and take its course. Now I need to get a drink of water. Once was lost, now is broken. Centuries later, in the year 2022, a museum tour guide was explaining the story of the betrothed queen. This is boring. I mean, there's no such thing as witchcraft or witches. In general, comments the schoolgirl wearing black leather jacket, blue turtleneck short shirt, black glasses, and her hair up in a bun. I know you may think it's not real, but some would disagree, the tour guide replies. Yeah, whatever, the girl remarks. Well, what do you think really happened, Tour guide pauses as she reads the girl's name tag. Lilith? The tour guide asks. Lilith starts speaking but made the decision of not responding back for some particular reason. That's what I thought. If you can't keep your mouth shut during a tour, then you shall not be here at all, the tour guide scolded. Okay, I'm sorry. If it's true, then where is she? Lilith asked. Of whom are you referring? The tour guide questioned. Carl, of course. If she's real, then where is she? Lilith questions. The tour guide looks at the time and then back at her. Time's up. Looks like that's the end of the tour. And it's time to close up the museum, the tour guide says, ignoring the question. You never answered my question, Lilith says, being interrupted by the tour guide. End of the tour. Now leave, nerd, the tour guide retorts, shooing her away. Lilith leaves and heads home thinking about the story the tour guide was telling. After everyone left the museum, the lights start flickering and music from one of the exhibits starts playing. A security guard rushes over to the exhibit and looks around to see where the music was coming from. Meanwhile, one of the voice warns, You shall be punished for your crimes. He stood there perplexed as if there were ripples in his mind. Is this some kind of joke? Who's there? Whoever you are, this isn't funny. A security guard directs his flashlight towards an exhibit. A figure wearing a black dress and a red jacket appeared in front of a music box, which suddenly mysteriously kept playing by itself. She wears a golden necklace with a moon hanging from it. On her head is a crown with chains looped around it and attached to a black veil. Wearing black gloves, she emerges from the dark in front of him. The security guard runs out and tries to get help, but the figure was too fast for him. Screams echoed throughout the exhibit hall and the museum. The security guard was never seen again. At least his body wasn't. The next day, officers surrounded the museum. A detective named Kia Lansky walks over to the crime scene. Everyone she knew called her Lansky, but her family would just call her Kia. All right, what do we have here? Detective Lansky asked as she studies two eyeballs laying on the ground. It looks like the body is gone. All we found are the eyes. That might have belonged to an employee, a gloved officer conjectures as he places the eyeballs in an evidence bag. Well, how do you know? Lansky asks as she contemplates the contents of evidence bag. Another officer strides over. Detective Lansky, we not only found eyes and a flashlight, but we found this. The officer shows Detective Lansky a crime scene photo. That's odd. It looks like writing in blood. But whose blood is the question? She ponders, curious about what had happened the night before. Excuse me? The officer asked. Nothing. I didn't say anything. Lansky comments before walking away. She asks a different officer at the crime scene. Are there any witnesses? No. No one seems to have any recollection of what happened last night or what happened to the security guard. The officer responds. Well, it looks like we've got a murder, and the more evidence we encounter, the more convoluted the clues become, Lansky declares, shaking her head. Lansky scrutinized the photo while reading it to herself. Excuse me, miss, Lansky inquired of the tour guide. It's Cassie. What do you want? Cassie rudely answered. I was wondering, what is that? Lansky asked, pointing to the exhibit with a white-veiled woman in a dress holding what appears to be a blood rose in one hand along with a partially exposed note in the other. That's a rose, obviously. I don't see why that's of any importance to you. Cassie says, no, on the note in her hand. Lansky clarifies. Cassie looks closely at the figure's hands and sees a piece of parchment with writing on it. I don't understand. Cassie pauses for a minute as a flashback of memories comes to her of the night her parents were presumed dead and she stood by her house crying. Excuse me, hello, Cassie. Lansky addresses her as she waves her hand in front of Cassie, who had a blank stare on her face. What? Sorry, Sorry, I just remembered something. That note, it's just some old parchment paper that historians found, and, well, now it's here. Cassie hesitantly explains. Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious. It's just that the writing in the blood one of the officers found might be connected to the note. Sorry for wasting your time, Lansky says as she leaves the museum. Cassie gulps and walks the opposite direction from Detective Lansky and the officers. Lies unfold. A few hours go by, and Lansky enters her house and thinks about what Cassie said about the note. She looks at the copy of the photo she got from the officer and reads the writing, says to herself. For some mysterious reason, she could not understand the dates on the bottom of writing in the picture. The lines of the thieves will end, Lansky says as she pulls out her laptop and looks up the year 1686 to see what happened that year. What if it's not talking about thieves, but the people who betrayed her and took everything from that poor girl, shown in that Hall of Royals exhibit at the museum? Lansky asks herself. Lilith walks in and sees her sister on the laptop and is curious as to what she's doing. Hey, Kia, what are you doing? Lilith asks. Nothing, just work stuff. Lansky closes her laptop and puts it away in her bag. It didn't look like work stuff. More like research on that boring exhibit that mean tour guide was explaining yesterday, Lilith says. Well, if you must know, there's been a murder at the museum yesterday, and since you were there, I figured you could tell me what you learned from that boring story you heard, Lansky says. From what I learned, that girl was killed before her wedding day, and they buried her in that outfit she was wearing at the museum, and also something about a note she wrote before she died. That's all I heard. Why? Lilith asked. It's not important, but anyways, did you find out what the note says by chance? Lansky asked. Nope. I didn't really pay attention to that, Lilith says. I'm heading to my room. Later, Kia. Lilith walks away to her room. Well, she was no help, Lansky says as she pulls out her laptop and looks up the line of Valentines, learning more and more about them. The next day, Lansky talks to the commissioner about the murders. Look, this makes no sense, Detective Lansky. The whole line of thieves could mean anything. the commissioner says. Okay, I've noticed a pattern here, and some of the Valentines were killed, and each time they are presumed dead. It's all leading back to Carl Metanoche, also known as Lady Midnight, from those stories we've been told as children, Lansky says, holding up an old newspaper. That's enough. I hate to say this, but you're off the case, Lansky. This is a bunch of mumbo jumbo, something a crazy person would say, the commissioner says as he puts the newspaper in the paper shredder and points to the door. If you try to impede this investigation or even go near this case, you will be fired, the commissioner demanded. Fine, I promise I won't, Lansky says, exiting the commissioner's office and walks outside, seeing a girl strolling in the shadows. The girl had recognizable black high tops with a hint of green, decorated with stars on the back of the hill. Lansky follows the girl and stops her. You! I know it was you, Lansky says. Fine, I was the one who lowered the security guard in the exhibit, but it was only a joke, only to prove that Lady Midnight doesn't exist. But I didn't know he would be killed, the girl says. So you did kill the officer. You're coming with me. Lansky puts the handcuffs on the girl and walks her to the police station. Lansky walks in and talks to the commissioner. I know you said not to impede or continue this case, but I think I found who did it, Lansky says. This girl is responsible for that murder? The commissioner asked, pointing to the TV. This just in. There's been a murder at Holloway Museum. There have been no suspects or anybody there. The only thing officers found were eyes and a flashlight. But rumor has it there's something wicked lurking there, and Detective Lansky and the other officers will keep us updated on this investigation. Back to you, Bobert, the news reporter says on the TV. Yes, I believe this girl is responsible for the murder of that security guard. She told me herself, Lansky said. Guess it was me, but I didn't kill the security guard. I only pretended to be Lady Midnight just to scare him, so I turned on the music box. I didn't think my joke would kill him, the girl says. Well, you did your job, Lansky. I'll put this girl in our custody for now, the commissioner says. Wait, I didn't kill him. There's more. I heard voices and weird sounds, the girl says in fear as she is taken away and put in jail cell. That girl is innocent until proven guilty, Lansky says. That was until she started spitting out a bunch of crazy lies, the commissioner says. But she said she didn't commit the murder, Commissioner. Maybe I was wrong. You can't put her in jail because she might know more about what happened, Lansky says. Look, maybe it was a mistake putting you on this case, or in charge of it. You should be proud of yourself. You caught the murderer, and now she has to be sentenced for her crimes. And I said I'd put her in our custody. I lied. She's going to be to the big house, the commissioner says. Wait, give me at least an hour to talk to her, just to find out more about what happened. And then I promise I won't impede on this investigation or question anyone any more about it, Lansky says. The commissioner thinks for a minute about what Lansky said before he can open. Ugh. The commissioner thinks for a minute about what Lansky said before he can respond. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll give you an hour to talk to her, and if you can find anything that may have a lead on this case, then I'll put you back on the case, but you would only have a month to investigate it. No more and no less. Got it? Commissioner says. I understand, Lansky says as she walks out of the commissioner's office. Lansky walks over to the jail cell with some criminals who are to be transported to the county jail. And she speaks to the girl. I'm pretty sure you already know me, but I'm going to take you to the interrogation room for questioning, and then after that, you have to be put back into the holding cell to get transported to the county jail, Lansky says to the girl. She takes her out of the cell and puts handcuffs on her. Look, I didn't do it. I promise it wasn't me. There was someone else there, the girl says as she and Lansky head to the interrogation room. Lansky and the girl walked in the interrogation room, and the girl sat across from her so she could question her. So tell me everything. that you saw at the museum that night of the murder, Lansky says. Well, I remember wearing a costume and waiting for the museum to close, and after everyone left, I hid in the hall of royal exhibits, behind the statue of Carl Nica Merinoche. From that story, I heard the girl started what happened at the museum as specifics. Then she remembers. So that's when you turned on the music box. Lansky asks, remembering what the girl said earlier in the alley. Well, after I hid by that statue, I walked over to this music box, and yes, that's when I turned it on, the girl said. Interesting. You mentioned voices heard and someone else was there. Can you tell me a little more about this? Lansky asked as she was writing down everything that the girl had said so far. Well, when I stood by the music box and I saw the security guard, I tried to scare him, but then I heard someone's footsteps coming and voices. The voices saying, you shall be punished for your crimes, and the line of thieves will end. I got so scared I ran into the hall next to the exhibit by the Hall of Royals, the girl said. So you're telling me that you heard someone else there with these voices, and whoever was there must have killed the security guard and not you, Lansky said, opening a file with photos taken from crime scene. Yes, and after that I heard the security guard screaming and then silence. Nothing could be heard. So I went over to see what had happened. The security guard was gone. The only thing I found were his eyes, the girl said as she put her head down. It's all my fault. If I hadn't played that joke on the security guard, none of this would have happened, the girl said, crying. I know it's not the right time to ask, but was there anyone there with you that you knew? Lansky asked. The girl puts her head up and looks at Lansky. No one. I knew, but before I ran off, I did catch a glimpse of her reflection on this exhibit with a blood rose on it, the girl said. So it was a woman, and can you tell me what you saw? I didn't see her face because it was covered by a black veil she had on, but I did see she was wearing a crown that had chains on it, the girl said, drawing an image of what she saw on the paper Lansky handed her. Lansky looks at the drawing and examines it for a minute. Interesting. And did she write the message on the wall in blood? Lansky asked. I'm not sure. I left the museum before I could see anything else happen, the girl said. Thanks. That's all I needed to know, Lansky said as she uncuffs the girl from the table and the lights start flickering. What's going on? Girl asked in terror. I don't know. I'm not doing this, Lansky said. The lights go out and it turns pitch black in the interrogation room. Lansky turns on her flashlight and looks at the girl. Hey, are you all right? Lansky asked. Yeah, I'm fine, the girl said. Stay close. I'll find the light switch and see if I can turn the light back on, Lansky says. The girl follows Lansky to the light switch and looks around to see if there is anyone else there besides them. Lansky uses her flashlight to find the light switch, and turns the light back on. When Lansky turned the light back on, there lay a blood rose. This can't be true. I don't understand, the girl said. What can't be true? Lansky asked, looking at the rose on the table. The story of Lady Midnight. That blood rose was left there for a reason, the girl said. Look, if you're right, then maybe I could convince the commissioner to let you go so we can see if Lady Midnight really is out there, Lansky says. There's no way he'll believe us, or rather me, considering the stunt I pulled, the girl said. He'll believe me because he's my friend, Lansky says. Okay, if you say so, the girl says. Lansky walks with the girl and puts her back in the jail cell. She heads to the commissioner's office, but all she found were the eyes of the commissioner left on his desk. Lansky screams in terror for an officer. The officer walks in and sees Lansky and a set of eyeballs on the desk. Detective Lansky, where's the commissioner? What is going on? The officer asked. I don't know, but I think the same thing happened with the commissioner like it did with the security guard from the museum, Lansky said. Well, it looks like you better call this one in, the officer said as she opened the door and called in backup. All units, we got a serious case. It looks like we got another murder. The commissioner, the officer said as a group of officers walked in the commissioner's office and started investigating. Back in 1996, Lady Midnight stood by the lake, looking at her reflection, remembering the pain and heartbreak she went through after she died and was resurrected. Vladimir appeared in front of her. You know, I remember seeing that sadness, and believe me, it's not going to make your revenge easier, Vladimir says. Lady Midnight looks at her and chokes Vladimir with one of her hands. Okay, I admit it, I overstepped, Vladimir says as Lady Midnight lets go of her neck. Thanks. I guess, well, there's something you should know. After you died, the Prince Alistair married that girl Bethany, and now there's a whole family of Valentines, Vladimir says. A tear is shed from Lady Midnight's face. Before thunder surrounds the area she is at, and a huge magic blast comes out of her hands, and her eyes glowing even bloodier than before. I will end their bloodline and take back what was once mine, Lady Midnight says as she realized what Vladimir meant by the necklace giving her back her voice. Vladimir disappears into the dark parts of the forest. In the present day, Lansky was still trying to solve the case, but instead of one, she had two cases to solve: the murder of the security guard at the museum and the murder of the commissioner. While she tried to solve the case, she also became the new commissioner. This just in recently, there's been a new murder, and the murder of the commissioner, dozens at the police station. Many believe it was a criminal let loose or one of the officers did it. No one knows for sure, but maybe the new commissioner, Kielansky, knows because many say she was the last one to talk to him. Could this be connected to the murder that happened at the museum? This is it for now. Back to you, Robert, the news reporter says on TV. I can't believe the mayor made me commissioner, and now this case is in my hands. Lansky says, well, I believe it. You've been here the longest, and the only one commissioner liked. An officer says, now where did that girl go? The officer asks. Well, after what happened to the commissioner, the court found her innocent, so they let her go, as I had hoped, Lansky says. What do you mean by had hoped? The officer asked. Never mind, not important. Now what is important is solving this case. Zelensky says, all right, my team is on it, Commissioner. The officer says, leaving Lansky's office. Lansky sat in her new office and was trying to figure out more about the murders. She then got up and looked at the photos she placed on the bulletin board. Security guard and a commissioner of the police station. This is odd, Lansky says to herself. A commissioner of security guard? She repeated to herself. A woman with blonde hair, a leather jacket, jeans, and a button-up shirt walks in. Sounds like you got a case on your hands, the woman says. Yeah, who are you? Lansky asks. I'm Agent Effany Lindale, and I work for the FBI, Effany says, holding up her badge. Why are you here? Lansky asks. Enough questions. There's a riot started, and some people are saying you killed the commissioner the other day, Effany says. But I didn't kill him. I walked in and found his eyes on what used to be his desk. Lansky says, I know, I believe you, but what I don't believe is why you let a criminal free, Effany says. She's not a criminal, she's innocent, Lansky says. Well, that's not what Officer Judy Locke says, Effany says. Officer Judy walks in wearing her police uniform. I told you this would happen, and you did not believe me, Judy says. Well, since we're on this subject, I think these murders are due to Lady Midnight, Lansky says. Prove it, Ebony says. Okay, so I've been doing some research about these murders, and they each happen every year. It dates somewhere back to the 1700s, after the night she was murdered. She's only killing the line of one family, and the family is the Valentines, Lansky says. You sound crazier than a monkey on ice skates, Judy says. Okay, the, the message an officer found said the line of thieves will end, but what if it's not talking about thieves but a family bloodline? Lansky says. I don't get it, Effie says, confused. Lady Midnight was killed the night before her wedding day, so she couldn't have had kids with Alistair Valentine, but none other than Bethany Grace, Lansky explains as she points at the photos on the bulletin board. And not only that, but she was killed by Bethany and her friends because of jealousy, she says. Hmm, that all makes sense, Effie says, looking at the photos on the bulletin board. Exactly. So maybe we should have teams split up so we can investigate the location further, Lansky says. Good idea. You do that. I'll go find that girl you let free the other day, Effie says, leaving. You are seriously out of your mind, Judy says, exiting the room. Judy gathers her team and starts to investigate the town hall to see what she can find. Judy hears footsteps and uses her hand to point to the direction of the footsteps and the sounds heard. A strange voice starts following the footsteps as music from the odd record player starts playing in the mayor's office. Okay, Judy, this is just someone playing a prank on you. There is nothing to worry about, Judy says to herself quietly and slowly walks around with her flashlight. You should run, a voice said in the shadows. A scream can be heard from the room next to the hallway Judy is in. Oh no, this can't be good, Judy said, running in the mayor's office. Hello, is anyone here? Judy says, pointing her flashlight around the room. Vladimir appears in front of her, smacking the flashlight from her hand. You must be Judy Locks, Vladimir says. And who are you? Someone who hasn't showered in weeks? 'Cause girl, you stanky, Judy says. Excuse me? How dare you insult me? I am way more powerful than you, Vladimir's voice echoed. Okay, my bad, but why are you trying to scare the day life out of me? I'm way too smart to die young. I got bills to pay, Judy says. Look, I'm Vladimir. I know about the murders, and believe me, you should not get in her way, Vladimir says. Well, whoever you are talking about, she's killing innocent people, so she needs to stop, Judy says. Fine, but don't come crawling back to me when you find the thing you value most gone. Vladimir disappears. Wow, the only thing I value other than my kids is my dog Pedro, and he's lazier than a raccoon digging in the trash can, Judy says. Now where did that girl Vladimir go? You know, for such a strange woman, she sure does walk fast, Judy says as she looks around. She finds someone's eyes left on the mayor's desk and broken flashlight. I am so out of here, she says, hearing whispers. Why have you come? One, one of the whispers says. Don't stop me, or you will die, another whisper says. I'm leaving. I'm not coming back, Judy says, running out and dropping her flowers from the shadows with what appears to be blood rose. She walks around and looks at the painting of her childhood bully Bethany sitting next to Alistair. She slashes the image with a knife and places the blood rose on the floor and disappears. Meanwhile, at the museum, Detective Lansky and her team investigate the hall of royal exhibits. The lights flicker, and a woman appears next to Detective Lansky. You need to stop before you are too late, Vladimir says. I don't have time for this, Lansky says to the woman. Voices from the shadows are heard from the end of the hall. I tried to warn you, Vladimir says, disappearing yet again. Who are you, and what do you want? Lansky says, pointing her gun and flashlight towards the end of the hallway. I will not answer that question, the voice said, echoing in the shadows. You will not stop me, and you can't, another voice said. So leave before I hurt the undeserving of being hurt, a voice said, echoing and getting deeper and deeper. No. Look, whoever you are, I know what it's like to lose someone you care about. I get it, but please don't make a mistake. That would ruin everything you once had, Lansky said. Lady Midnight listens for a minute before screaming and destroying half the statues in the Hall of Royals exhibit area. Lansky drops her flashlight and passes out on the ground from how powerful the screams was. One of the officers drags her body out of the museum and to safety. My shattered heart. I can go on and on and on until people actually pay attention to me. But I need to finish doing my artwork. Um, Lady Midnight held onto her necklace and she started to see a vision of her mother singing to her when she was a kid and what she told her. What are you singing, Mother? Carl asked. Just a song my mother used to sing to me when I was your age, Carl's mother, Evangeline said. It's very lovely, Carl said, sitting next to her mother. Do you promise to never leave me? Carl asked. I promise, Carl. There will be a time where it will seem like I'm not there, but I'll always be with you, Evangeline said, smiling at her. The knights barged in and took Carl's mother away from her, shouting, Witch! Carl tried to stop them, but no, she screamed. The vision faded, and the more Lady Midnight remembered, the more she realized how much torture she went through and how she'll never learn to forgive those who wronged her. At the hospital, Lansky woke up, and the first person she saw was Judy. Glad you're awake, girl. Have I got loads to tell you, Judy says. How did I get here? Lansky asked. Let's just say you passed out at the museum. Judy says, I don't remember that, but anyways, I better get on this case right away. Lansky says, all right, let's go then, Judy says. Lansky gets up and puts her jacket on and walks with Judy. She gets in Judy's police car and looks out the window as Judy is driving the car. How long was I in the hospital for? Lansky said. You've been there for about 2 weeks. Whatever happened in the museum must have affected you badly. Not severely, just badly. How is that not severe? Well, it is, but it isn't. Never mind that. We got a case to solve, Judy says. Pulling up to the police station, Judy gets out of the car and with Lansky, and they both head inside the building. Lansky walks in her office and sees Effie sitting at her desk. Detective Lansky, what are you doing here? Effie says. I work here and I'm the commissioner, so do you mind getting out of my desk? Lansky says. Yeah, no worries, I'll move, but there's something you should know. After I questioned that girl you let go, I started to realize that maybe you were right about the case, and also, there's been another murder in the forest. I investigated it a little with some of my agents, and none of them made it back to the FBI building. Effie says, that's strange. I wonder why this is. Lansky says, I'm not sure, but if Lady Midnight is real, then we really upset her this time. Effie says, getting up from Lansky's desk. What do you mean by that? Lansky asks, confused. Look, I don't want to scare you, but there's a girl who works in the museum who's being, but I'm not sure that happened because I wasn't working as an FBI agent at the time. You should probably look into that. Who knows, it might be a lead for this case, Effie says, walking out of Lansky's office. Interesting. Lansky says to herself. Lansky then decides to head to the museum to look for Cassie. As she walks in, she notices that there's a bunch of caution tape in the Hall of Royals exhibit area. She stands there for a minute and remembers hearing the screaming and the shadows, the pain, the suffering she endured, and also catching a small glimpse of the statue of Lady Midnight revealing what she looks like now, the truth about what really happened ages ago. A girl walks over to Lansky and notices that she is looking at the statue of Lady Midnight. That statue is very strange, isn't it? The girl says to Lansky what happens to have a blank stare on her face. Oh, what? Yeah, it is. I think I may have encountered that girl that the statue is of. Lansky says to the girl. You have? Do tell, the girl says. Lansky turns and looks at the girl, recognizing her from the police station a few weeks before she became commissioner. You are that girl I let free, aren't you? Lansky asked. Yes, but I'm trying to turn my life around, and I too have been doing my own investigating on this case, the girl said. Oh, and did you find anything? Lansky says. I did indeed. Meet me at this address at sundown tomorrow and discuss what I found. The girl says, writing down the address to meet her at, and handing it to the detective Lansky. The girl then walks out of the museum before Lansky could say anything more to her. Okay, I guess, Lansky says with confusion. She looks at the address the girl wrote down on paper she handed her and puts it in her pocket. She sees Cassie and walks over to her. Cassie, right? Lansky asks. Yeah, that's me. And you're Detective Lansky. We talked a few weeks ago, just before I heard about the incident that happened here, Cassie says. If you're referring to the statues being destroyed and me passing out, then yes, I do remember that talk we had, Lansky said. I wasn't talking about that incident. Well, yes, a lot of statues were destroyed, but there was also a report of a missing diadem, an artifact that was stolen from here, more specifically in this area of the museum, Cassie says, pointing at the exhibit with the broken glass and dagger stabbed in on the spot of where the missing artifact should used to be. I wasn't aware of that. Do you know what artifact went missing? Lansky asked. Well, the diadem artifact was an emerald crown of the moon goddess Estrella, which was given to none other than. Cassie pauses as she gulps. It was given to none other than Carl Anika Metanoche, aka Lady Midnight, just before she was killed, Cassie says, taking a glance at the broken statue of Lady Midnight with caution tape surrounding it. On her coronation day? Lansky says. On whose coronation day? Cassie asks. Well, on Lady Midnight's coronation day, she was given her mother's crown, who is said to have been a witch, which is why she was killed, so to speak, Lansky says. Well, no one knows for sure why Carl's mother was killed, only that she was killed for a crime she did not commit, Cassie says. No, that's exactly what happened, Lansky says. Well, how would you know? You weren't there, Cassie says, placing her hands on her hips, glaring at Lansky. Just because I wasn't there doesn't mean I didn't do my research on her family history before I got assigned to this case, Lansky says. Good point. Now, what's the real reason you're talking to me? I know you're not talking to me because you wanted me to tell you more about Lady Midnight's mother, or her family history, rather, Cassie says. You're right. I didn't. I wanted to know what happened to you years ago. Now, before you ask, yes, I do know some things about it, but only from what a friend has said, Lansky said. Well, if you must know, I was about 12 years old and I had just come home from school. I looked for my parents everywhere, but I couldn't find them. So I called the cops. The cops came and searched the house. When they finished searching the house for them, Cassie pauses, the tears fall from her face. They couldn't find them, but what they did find was their eyes and a note attached to what looked like a blood rose. That's when the cops told me that they were dead. I didn't believe it, so I walked outside my house and I stood on my front porch, devastated from what I had just been told. And that's when I knew that Lady Midnight was real and that I would be next, Cassie says, wiping her tears from her face. So when you asked me about the note that Lady Midnight was holding before her statue got destroyed, it appears to have been changed. I do know what it is and what it says. You wouldn't understand because you were never there when my parents were killed that night, she explains to Detective Lansky. Look, I may have not been there, but I do understand. My parents died in a house fire, and I blame myself for it every day of my life, but it's not like I can turn back the clock and change what had happened. Because even if I wanted to, it would be impossible for me to prevent their deaths, Lansky says. You're right, you can't. I'm sorry, I didn't know what had happened to you. I should have known better than to say that, Cassie says. It's fine. You didn't know, but anyways, thank you for telling me what happened. Knowing this might help me with this case, Lansky states, pausing for a minute. Before I go, I was hoping I could ask you something, she says. Yes, of course, anything, Cass says. By chance, do you have the note that was found at your old house? Lansky says, yes, in fact, I always keep it on me as a reminder of what had happened to me years ago. Cassie says, pulling the note out from her pocket and handed it to Lansky. Lansky takes the note Cassie handed her and looks at it for a second. Bravery encourages what led me to my death. And remember me, for I have not been forgotten. Lansky says, reading the note. That's odd. Here's the note. Here's the note back, Lansky says, handing Cassie the note back. Keep it. That might help you with solving the case. Cassie says, handing the note back to Lansky. Thanks, Cassie. I will never forget this. Lansky says, leaving the museum. Remember me, for I have not been forgotten. A few weeks before Lansky woke up from being passed out, Lady Midnight appeared in the museum. The cameras glitched as she walked past each one of them. When she headed to the Hall of Royals exhibit area, she saw her crown in a glass case with a security system of layers surrounding it. A security guard walked in the area she was at, holding the flashlight. She blended in with the shadows as the security guard walked by. She appeared by the exhibit after the security guard had left. She destroyed the glass case with her crown in it and set off the alarm museum. A security guard heard the noise, and rushed out to the Hall of Royals exhibit area. Lady Midnight took the crown and placed it on her head. A steel cage dropped down, surrounding her as the security guard walked in. Hey, that's not yours. Whoever you are, this is not funny, the security guard said. Lady Midnight stood there for a minute, not listening to a word he said. Not listening to me, huh? The security guard lifted up her black veil from her face, revealing her small golden moon marking on her neck. Lady Midnight grabbed the very beefy security guard by the neck and threw him across the floor, causing one of the statues to fall on top of him. She threw the cage surrounding her the other direction, away from the security guard, and walked past him, wearing the crown she once lost. Meanwhile, Ethne stood in the forest with her small team and searched the area. She had her team split up and looked for clues. She then looked around, and the wind blew. As screams could be heard, she ran over to see where the screams were coming from, but she found nothing, not a sound. She tried calling her team, but no answer, and none of them showed up. Vladimir walked over to her and stood in front of her. I warned you something bad would happen, just like I warned that girl, Cassie's parents, just before they were killed, Vladimir said. Who are you, and what are you talking about? Ethne asked. Funny, you should ask that. Which reminds me of a girl I once knew, Vladimir says. You didn't answer my question, Ethne says, pointing her gun at her. Uh, fine. I'll talk. I'm Vladimir, and I'm not talking about that tour guide Cassie. Her parents were killed because they got in her way. Vladimir says, whose way? Ethne says, the same person that lost her diadem in this very spot due to someone trying to find her. Of course they failed. Vladimir says, what kind of diadem do you speak of? Ethne asks, putting her gun away, her emerald crown, which was her mother's just before she was killed for being accused of being a witch. Vladimir smirks. Oh, well, how do you know this? Ethne asks. Because I just do. Now, I must be on my way, Vladimir says, leaving. Present day at Lansky's house, there was a fire, but Keo was unaware of it. Lansky drove up to her street and saw the firefighters there at her house putting the fire out. Why would they be? Lansky thought to herself as Lansky pulled up to her house. She got out of her car and was asking where her sister Lilith was. A nurse walked over to Lansky and looked at her. Kia, we put your sister in the ambulance. We don't know if she'll make it. She seemed to be hurt pretty badly with the wounds we saw on her, the nurse said as she got in the ambulance. She better be okay, and I'm coming with you, Lansky said as she opens her car door. All right, sounds like a plan, the nurse says, closing the back of the ambulance doors. Lansky gets in the car and follows them to the hospital. She gets She then gets out of the car. As she arrives at the hospital with the ambulance and the nurse inside the truck, she follows them inside and sits outside the waiting room, waiting for them to tell her if her sister is okay or not. A doctor walked in, over to the waiting room, holding a clipboard. Kia Lansky? The doctor called out her name in the waiting room. That's me. I'm Kia Lansky. Lansky raised her hand. Come with me, the doctor said to Lansky, and they both walked outside to the hall. There's something I need to tell you. The doctor tried explaining what was going on before getting interrupted by Lansky. Tell me, she's okay. I don't want to lose her. She's my little sister, Lansky said, more worried than she could have ever been. That's what I wanted to tell you. I'm afraid Lilith, your sister, didn't make it. She was too wounded to be saved, and she lost too much blood, especially from her eyes, the doctor said. No, she can't be. That is a lie. I can't believe this. Lansky screams. I'm sorry, but it is true, and there was nothing we could have done. Commissioner, the doctor explained. I don't understand. I want to find more things in this case. I never thought she'd be next, Lansky says, devastated as she sits on a chair in the hall. Look, there's something you should know, and it's that the surgeons found a rose in your sister's hand. I think that might have had something to do with her death. I have to go, but hopefully you'll find some time to reconcile, the doctor says, walking away. After Lansky got the devastating news from the doctor, she investigated her burned down house to see if there were any clues she could find. Ebony stood by a room with caution at the entrance, holding a teddy bear with a note attached to it. Lansky walks over and looks at Ebony. Wherever danger is, you seem to follow it, Lansky says. Well, that is my motto. Wherever danger is, I follow. But anyways, I take it you used to live here, Ebony says. How did you guess? Lansky asks. I found your teddy bear, and it has a note with your name on it, Ebony says. One, that's not my teddy bear. It was my sister's. And two, what does the note say? Lansky says. It says this is what happened when you ignore me, Detective Lansky. Next time it will be that FBI agent Ebony, and then you. Mind telling me what the hell this is about? Ebony says, handing Lansky the teddy bear. I know who did this. Remember that girl you questioned, the one I let go just after the commissioner was killed? Lansky says, face palming. Yeah? She did this. I know. I knew she couldn't be trusted. Let's go before she hurts anyone else, Ebony says, walking out of the house with Lansky. Lansky and Ebony walked in the alley after leaving the house. Well. I see you got my message, the girl said, wearing a pink dress, blue high heels, boots, a black jacket, and her hair in a ponytail. It wasn't even sundown. You had no right. None at all, Lansky says. Yeah, but your sister annoyed me, so I chased her to your house and set the house on fire. She called those pathetic firefighters. They did come to her rescue, but eventually were too late to save her. And whose fault was that? The girl asked. It was yours, Ebony said. Wrong. It was Detective, or should I say Commissioner Lansky's fault her sister was killed, the girl said, smirking. No, it wasn't. Who even are you? Lansky asked. Funny you should ask, because I'm Joelle Grace, a descendant of Bethany Grace, and I am the real Lady Midnight. You see, I'm not the one who killed all those people. In fact, I covered my tracks. I only did what I did because Carl Media, what's her face, stole everything my ancestors Bethany had, so I decided to get my revenge because that stupid girl deserves everything that she had coming to her. Joelle said, trying to explain what happened to Carl, but before she could, she got stabbed and her neck got snapped by Vladimir, who stood right behind her the whole time. Lansky and Ebony backed away from Vladimir while pulling out their guns and pointing them at her. What a liar! Such a shame. She has such a good soul, but it was darkened by jealousy. Vladimir says. Lansky and Ebony looked at her shockingly. What? Someone had to do something about this girl. She was spilling out lies and apparently blood too. She thinks she's Lady Midnight? I resurrected that girl, so I should know what she looks like. Vladimir says, did you just say you resurrected her? Lansky said. No. I said I gracefully floated like a bee. Vladimir lied. No, you said you resurrected Lady Midnight, Ebony said. No, I didn't. Do yourself a favor and stay away from her. Vladimir says, look, Vladimir, right? By chance is there a way to stop her? Lansky asks, no, I don't know nada. Vladimir lies even more while crossing her arms. Oh, really? Then why do you keep telling us to stay away from her, then? Lansky asks. Not telling a single soul, Vladimir says. Fine, don't talk, but my sister was killed by that girl you brutalized, so please help us. I've lost too much already, Lansky says, putting her gun down for a minute. Child, I wish I could help you, but... Vladimir says, thinking for a minute. But you can't. I understand, Lansky says. No, I just don't want to, is what I was going to say. Anyways, you have a case to solve, which I highly recommend you don't continue, by the way. Vladimir says, fine, I won't. You may not be able to help me, but maybe this will convince you too, Lansky says, holding up a blood rose. Ha! You think a silly rose is going to convince me to do anything? You are most indeed mistaken. Vladimir says, it's not just an ordinary rose, it's a blood rose you gave to Lady Midnight, Lansky says. How do you know that? Vladimir asks. Because of the stories we've all been told. Lansky says, if you are the legend Vladimir herself, how are you still alive? Ebony asks. Figures. And although I do like to be called a legend, while a good skincare routine will keep you looking this good forever, that's how, Vladimir says. The last part sarcastically, that's impossible. Ebony says, I'm kidding, but seriously, that's a hidden secret altogether. But I will say this, and that if this is a blood rose, I can touch it. I'm sworn not to. If I do, I can't tell you, Vladimir says as she disappears in the fog. Where did the fog come from? Ebony asks. I don't know, but we have to get out of here, Lansky says. Agreed, Ebony says as she walks away from the fog with Lansky. As they walk out of the fog, they end up in the forest. Okay, how did we end up here? Lansky asks. Beats me, but this is the same area that my team disappeared at, and I encountered Vladimir, Ebony says. Funny you never mentioned you encountered her, Lansky said. I didn't think it was important. Ebony says, true, but anyways, did you happen to have run into a house on your way in the forest? Lansky says, no, why do you ask? Ebony asks. That Lansky points to the house in the dark part of the forest. Well, that's a little unnerving, she says as she looks at the direction Lansky's pointing to. I couldn't agree more. Maybe we should check it out. You may have more clues on this case, Lansky says, walking further into the forest. Fine. Since you got me into this mess, Ebony says, following her into the forest. As they walk further in the forest, Lansky calls her co-worker and trusted friend Judy at the police station. And now you people know part of the book. Makes you want to read.
Past chapter 3.
No, I'm chapter 7. Back at the police station, Officer Judy was talking to some of the officers and laughing with them until Suddenly, she hears the telephone ring and she walks over to answer it. This is how the Holloway police station. This is the Holloway police station. What's the emergency? Judy asked. Judy, it's me, Lansky, and I think I found let Lansky says on the phone as the power goes out in the police station. Lansky, you there? Hello? Judy asked confusingly. Looks like the power is out, an officer says, flashing his flashlight at her. Obviously, and don't flash me with your light. That thing is very bright, Judy says, her turning on her flashlight. This is strange. The same thing happened in the museum from what Lansky said, Judy says, walking around trying to find the power switch. Split up. We may find a light or a way out, she says. The other officer split up and looks for a way out and light switch. Judy walks around with her gun and flashlight. As she walks around, she hears footsteps, the same footsteps from the museum. A voice calls out to her. Judy, the voice says. Whoever you are, this isn't funny. Yet again, Judy says, follows the voices and the footsteps which led her to the commissioner's office. She opens the door, and there she sees Joelle sitting in the commissioner's desk. Hello, Judy, Joelle says. Who are you? Judy asks. Doesn't matter, but what does matter is I finally destroyed Lady Midnight once and for all. I'll make sure she stays in the ground. You wait and see. Joelle gets up from the desk and walks over. It's time this city knew what she had done. Killing the lives of my family who did nothing to her, Joelle says. Actually, she was killed by people who were cruel to her, Judy says, pointing her gun at her. Lies, lies, and more lies. I don't believe you, and I never will. In fact, I will have my revenge, Joelle says as she looks at Judy, who seems to be paying attention to something else at the moment. I'm trying to talk, and it doesn't seem like you're paying attention. What is so important to you? Joelle feels something tap her shoulder as she turns around, and there stood Lady Midnight, who did not look too happy to see her. Oh, shit, she says, but right there, before she could finish her speaking, her eyes got stabbed by Lady Midnight, and her head got ripped off her body. Judy took her gun and shot at Lady Midnight. But with every bullet she shot, Lady Midnight healed very quickly from the wounds. That's impossible. No one can heal from that, Judy says. It's not impossible, Lady Midnight says, her voice echoing. You should have stayed away, she said, with her voice echoing even more. She disappears in the shadows and things in the room start flying towards Judy. Guns from glass float towards Judy and point at her. This can't be happening, Judy says. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Lansky and Effie stood in front of the house they found. Any word from your colleague? Effie asked, standing on the side of the door, holding her gun, pointing it down. Lansky stands on the other side of the door, holding her gun the same way. No, the call must have been blocked due to how bad the services in this forest could be, Lansky says. That's strange. My phone signal works perfectly fine here. I don't see why yours wouldn't. Effie says, that is strange. When you say it like that, Lansky says, waiting to give that signal to go into the house. She gives the code 4 signs with her hand. Her and Effie break down the door with their shoulders hitting against it. Effie picks up a rock, throws it towards the cauldron. She sees in front of her and Lansky near the entrance of the house to see if anything would happen. It's all clear, Effie says as the door opens by itself. That's strange. Let's go investigate it, Lansky says. All right, Effie says, following Lansky to the room with the open door in the corner behind the cauldron. As they both walk in the room, the door shuts by itself, making an old creaking noise as it does. That was more strange. Even more strange, Lansky says, looking back at the closed door. Yeah, but I've seen this in a movie once. 2 cops enter a creepy house to investigate. The door shuts on its own, and the 2 cops never make it back. The only difference between you and me in this scenario is that I'm an agent and you're a detective. Well, technically the commissioner, but still. Effie exaggerates a bit. True, but I think you're just being a little over exaggerated a bit. With that last part, Lansky says, looking at the closet on one side of the room. Maybe, but I think it could still happen, Effie says, putting her gun down on top of the dresser and opening one of the drawers. She looks inside to see what may be in it. Maybe, but I doubt it. Anyways, did you find anything over there? Lansky asked, trying to open the closet, but there's a lock on it. No, but I did find this blood rose with a letter attached to it, though, Effie says, putting a glove on and taking the blood rose with a letter attached to it out of the drawer. Lansky walks over to the dresser. Effie is curious about the letter. What does the letter say? Lansky asks. It says, Dear Carl, I am so happy we got to meet today. I know we haven't talked in a while since I moved, but I figured writing on this piece of parchment might be a good way to talk. I also forgot to tell you that I found something out about that rose you found in the forest. It's a rose that always only the living to see their future, or so I've been told. Well, hopefully I'll see you at the market today. Sincerely, your friend Lilith V. Effie says, as she finishes reading the letter and puts it down on the top of the dresser. Lilith V? What do you think that could be? Lansky says. Lansky asks. I'm not sure, but this note was written in 1696, so it must have been before the princess's coronation. Anthony says. This letter mentions Carl. The only person I could think of is Carl Anika Medanoche, aka Lady Midnight, Lansky says. Walking over to the closet with a lock on it, holding the lock, Effie shoots the lock on the closet door, almost hitting Lansky. Are you kidding me? You could have shot my hand off, Lansky says, taking the now broken lock off the closet door. But I didn't, so you're fine. Don't be such a baby, Effie says, blowing the smoke from her gun away from it as she puts it away. I am no... Never mind, let's get back to investigating. Lansky says, opening the closet. To her surprise, she found a diary and clothes in it. Effie walks over to Lansky with a bag of powder she found in one of the drawers. Whoa, this is the dress Carl wore when she was meeting Lilith V at the market, Effie says, looking at one of the dresses in the closet. Yeah, and it looks like it has been recently worn, which means someone either lives here or has been hiding here, Lansky says, looking at the dress. As they both keep looking in the closet door from the outside, someone is coming. Hide, Ebony says, hiding in the closet. Okay, but we're to, whoa, Lansky says, being pulled in the closet by Ebony, and she closes the closet door. A woman wearing a white dress with long sleeves walks in the room. Lansky and Ebony are in. The woman looks in one of the drawers and notices the letter has been moved. She then looks at the closet door and sees the lock on the floor. Someone has been here, the woman says, walking out of the room as she puts the door from behind, shuts the door from behind. Isn't that the same woman who killed that girl in the alley? Effie asked. Yeah, but before she disappeared in the fog, which led us here, I noticed she had something shiny in her bag, like a trinket or something. Lansky whispers softly and quietly. Interesting. That could explain why she was in that alley, Effie whispers. The woman walks back in the room and picks up the lock from the closet. I know you're here. I know why you came, the woman said. Joelle appears by the woman and stands there, placing her head back on her body. Good. Now tell me, Vladimir, how did you resurrect Karolinka Medanoche and turn her into Lady Midnight? Joelle says. I'm not telling you, and I never will. You wouldn't understand. That poor girl lost everything she had, and I only did her a favor by bringing her back so she could get revenge on those who wronged her. And I thought you were dead, Vladimir says. You can't kill me, and even if you tried, it would be impossible to. Now talk. I will use this blood rose to convince you, Joelle says, holding a blood rose. No, I don't know what you are or why you're trespassing in my home. But you need to go. Be gone or face my wrath. Vladimir says, fine, but don't expect me to be so nice the next time I return, Joelle says, walking out of the room. Yeah, whatever. Vladimir then continues to look around, but as she does, she senses another presence in the room. She walks to the closet and opens it. What are you two insignificant idiots doing here? Vladimir asked, looking at Lansky and Ebony. Well, we ended up in the forest from all that fog. Then we found what appears to be your house. And Lansky explains before being interrupted by Vladimir. Okay, that makes sense. I see you found the letter from a girl named Lilith Valentine, Vladimir says. Carl's best friend and also the sister of Alistair. What do you know about her and why did you lie to us earlier about you resurrecting Lady Midnight? Anthony asked. I'm not going to say. I told you to stay away and not to interfere, and what did you two arrogant fools do? You intervened and now you're too late, Vladimir says, her voice echoing. What's that happening supposed to mean? Lansky said. One of your allies will die, and so will you. Vladimir says, trying to disappear, but ends up back in the room. You can't leave this house. Every time you disappear, you end up back in this room. Why? Anthony asks. Again, I'm not saying, Vladimir says as the blood starts dripping from the roof of the house. Fine, don't say anything, but more people will die if you don't. Lansky says, I don't care, and even if I did, I wouldn't have a heart anyways. Vladimir says, a heart? Someone stole it from you, which is why you can't touch the blood rose. Ebony said, no, stupid, that's not why I can't touch the blood rose. You wouldn't understand, and I shall not tell you. Vladimir says, first off, I'm not stupid. Second, not all blondes are stupid, as that is just a stereotype. And third, what's with all the dresses, the diary in the closet, and this powder? Ebony asks, it's none of your business now, so leave. Vladimir says, as a fog appears, Lansky and Ebony try to see where Vladimir is, but by the time the fog cleared, they ended up back in the police station. Lansky walked around and noticed that the power was out. I knew something odd was going on here. That explains why the phone cut off earlier, Lansky says. Yeah, Ebony says as she hears gunshots coming from Lansky's office. Something's going on. Let's go, she says as she follows Lansky to their office. As they walk in, Ebony and Lansky see Judy trying to block the floating guns shooting at her with a trash can lid. Judy sees Lansky and Ebony walk in. Thank goodness you two arrived. Now, because I'm dealing with something right now, Judy says. Okay, we're here to help, Ebony says, shooting at the weapons floating in the air, attacking them. Lansky stands next to Judy, who happens to be holding a trash can lid. Might not be a good time to ask, but where did you find the time to get a trash can lid? Lansky asks. You never know what you might find in the dark, Judy says. The weapons drop on the floor and Lady Midnight appears in the front of them. Oh no, this can't be good, Judy says. The stories, all the legends were true, Ebony says. Judy runs over to Lady Midnight and attacks her. Lady Midnight grabs her by the neck and throws her across the room. As Judy runs towards her, she then lifts her veil up from her face, revealing a face that was once forgotten, but now remembered. Please don't do this, Lansky says. I have my rights and you can't stop me, Lady Midnight says as her voice echoes. She screams, causing the building to collapse. She then scratches Ebony with her hand when she floats down and floats past her very quickly. Let's go before the building falls on us, Lansky says as she starts to drag Judy out the door. Okay, Ebony says, following Lansky out of the building. As Lansky and Ebony make it out of the building, the police station collapses. I was not expecting that, Lansky says. Me neither, Ebony says, looking at her wound on the side of her chest. She falls down, but before she hits the ground, Lansky catches her. I'm not going to let you die on me. I'll call for help, Lansky says, sitting on the floor, gently placing Ebony's head on her arm. No, I think you've done enough to help me, Ebony says, coughing while she is slowly dying. No, please, I've lost too much. I don't want to lose my friend, too, Lansky says, reaching for her phone to call for help. Effie stops her with her hand. It was a pleasure working with you, Kia, Effie said before she died. Jeez, Mariah. Effie, no, no, please don't go, Lansky says with tears falling down her face. No, Lansky yells while crying. Judy wakes up from being passed out and walks over to Lansky. I can't believe this. She was such a good soul, Judy says, sitting next to Lansky, hugging her. If only I had known. Well, you're just gonna have to buy the book to read the, know the rest of it. I have read 8 chapters, almost 8 chapters to you people, and whoever subscribes to my channel, you will know about this book. It's a great book. Our son Steven did the cover. It's badass. There's a picture that we added in here. No, he didn't draw that. We found this and we added it because she loved roses and butterflies. And it's a beautiful wallpaper. There's also quotes in here that Mariah did, and if you want to find out more about this book, you're going to have to buy it. Now, some places online have it for different prices, but it's $20 if you buy it from like Walmart, Amazon, and Barnes and Noble. But eBay, they tend to charge over. I don't know why. I think it should be $19.99, fair price. And it's a good book. It's a short book, but it is worth the freaking read. I'm telling you. This is a book our daughter Mariah Archibeque wrote. So please get this book, and it's worldwide. So it's in other countries too. So buy it. It's a good book. If anybody knows any ideas on how to make merch, let me know. I really don't do live very much, because I'm kind of a busy person, because I do my school online. I'm actually doing the Academy of Art University and getting my illustrations degree. It's going to take me a couple years for that, but please buy this book. This book is worth it. And it was written by Mariah Archibeque, who was 19 years old. Our daughter, she died of Ewing sarcoma cancer. She should be here. And she wanted to inspire others so they wouldn't feel alone. And like I said, our son Steven did the cover. He does other drawings too and paintings. He's done different ones. And if anybody has any ideas, some of his art is on, I think it's called Found Myself or something like that. I think that's what it's called. But we're doing this in memory of Mariah because this was her legacy. And she meant the world to all of us, and she still does. And we know that she'd be happy to know that her book got into other people's hands so they wouldn't feel alone, because she felt alone. And she was strong and brave and beautiful inside and out, and she was the strength of our family. She always pulled us together, and even though she's not here physically, we feel her every day. And reading this book, oh my gosh, I forgot some of the stuff in this book. Is like, really? Mariah added, some funny stuff in there. I can't give you this book because that one's mine. Steven signed it. Of course, we do have some books that we're selling in person, but we're in New Mexico, so We're also trying to do a book event for her. We tried one before, but it was small and not enough time to do. But this time around, it's going to be 1 to 4:45. It's going to be in Bernalillo, New Mexico. So we're not sure in April when we're going to do it, but we're going to be selling some of her books and some of Steven's artwork. So I hope whoever notices this, I talk a lot, and you got to know a lot about her Mariah's book, and it's hard to read it sometimes, but if it gets to like Mariah Carey or Miley Cyrus or even Alexa Bliss or the Bella Twins or Johnny Depp or John Cena, Taylor Swift. I mean, some people that she likes, and Fauzia. Fauzia is a great artist too. Great music. They all have great music and talents, and acting. And Mariah Carey was one of her faves. Miley, she was a huge fan of Miley. I mean, she had some Hannah Montana stuff when she was a little toddler. But unfortunately, her comforter set got stolen. So from people that, you think that they care about you and they turn around and steal your crap, Still from little kids, and it's messed up. But it's going to be 2 years in August, and her birthday's coming up in May, and that's going to be hard because we're thinking about going to her grave, which we haven't been to. Our son Steven has, and she's finally going to be getting a headstone. My mom told me because one of my sisters is helping. Headstones are expensive, though. You notice they're like thousands of dollars. Pathetic. Even funerals are expensive. Like $10,000. A lot of people don't have that. It's ridiculous. But me personally, I don't want to be in the ground when I die. I want to be cremated. I wish I had a Viking funeral, where they wrap your body up, put you on logs, and just let your body just burn, like your spirit just goes. That'd be cool, but Mariah didn't want to be in the ground. She wanted ashes in a tree. But, because money situation, she didn't get that. So, can't change it. But her funeral was kind of boring, There's this priest that would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Mariah was not religious. She was not. And this how do you even know where they go right away? Seriously, they just died and their souls are ready to go somewhere. So, hey, I think Mariah saw her funeral and she started laughing because I felt that. Her casket said mother on it. She didn't have no kids except for Olaf, her little puppy. That was her baby. That was her poopsie. She loves him a lot. And he's a Chihuahua mix. He's really cute. He's got big ears. Some Chihuahuas, they have big ears. He kind of looks like Pua sometimes, or, Dobby from Harry Potter. But he's really, really cute. And he knows I'm talking about him because he's staring at me. He does that. Like Mariah used to. Where, he's got like this redness around his eyes and red on his nose. And it reminds me of Mariah because she had red hair. She had beautiful hair. She was beautiful. I'm not just saying that because she was our daughter. I'm just saying that because she was. I mean, she was my hero. She's a hero. All these kids are heroes because of what they're going through. And they need more funding. They need to find cures now before more and more kids die. Because how many more are we going to have to put in the ground? How many more are we going to have to cremate? How many more are we going to just have our hearts ripped out? because our kids matter, no matter how old they are. Even if they're pain in the asses sometimes. I mean, we got a pain in the ass older son. He's
resilient.
He's pain in the ass. All our kids are pain in the asses. I'm a pain in the ass. My husband's a pain in the ass. We love our kids inside and out. We love them all the same, even though they're so different, but similar. It's cool how our younger son Tyler and our youngest daughter Megan, they look similar to Mariah and Steven. You've seen their videos, they're really cute little kids. I don't put much of videos of them, but they mean the world to me, my husband, and there's nothing we wouldn't do for them. And there's nothing they wouldn't do for us either. So, and they don't look at people because of what color they are or what they are. They just look at them as human beings, and that's the way you should teach your kids. And don't teach them how to hate. And that's one thing that Mariah was about. She didn't like hate. She wanted people to get along, no matter who they are. Now, if you're Trumpkin and his little followers, I don't know what to tell you. You're just lost and brainwashed. You want to wear China merch? Fine. I wear Chinese merch. In fact, my witch jacket I got from China. But am I wearing a MAGA hat? You're saying that you want American made. Do you know what America means? Because there's 3 parts, okay? For all you Trumpkin supporters, okay? There's 3. America's a continent, not a country. There's other countries attached to us. So they're all Americans too, but they all have different cultures. They're part of different countries. And for people calling Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America, really? So now you admit that Mexico is part of America. They're part of North America. You just, you know, why do you think they're not so pissed off? Because they're stupid. You think you took something from them? Think again. Because this is their land, okay? Native Americans, different parts of America have Native Americans, different tribes, different cultures. We're native to this land. And also, our ancestors were immigrants too, or our relatives are immigrants. You're an immigrant because pilgrims got slaves over, black slaves. They came over here, and it wasn't about the Native Americans sharing and, like they gave them a turkey and stuff like that. No, they took over Native American land. Do you understand that? I got Native in my blood. I got Swedish, Norwegian, and I got Spanish. What are you going to do about that? Our kids are multicultural. They're Heinz 57s. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to cut them in little pieces? You're sending innocent people to countries they don't really? They're still part of America, right? And you're all for destroying people's lives that did nothing to you. So think about this, okay? Now that it's called Gulf of America, you're just admitting Mexico is part of America. When are we going to admit that? When are we going to admit that Canada is? When are we going to admit that there's Central and South America that's part of us too? There are different cultures a part of us from all over the world, from Asia, Africa, from North, South, and Central America. There's also, Australia is another continent. Did you know that? I bet you didn't know that either. Because there's Australia, Asia, America, Europe, I can't name them all, sorry. But there's probably like six continents, I think. And the United States is a tiny little piece of a fucking country. And you people with Trumpkin think that you can fight these wars against countries that are bigger than us? Are you insane? Insane. And then you're pissed off at, well, they're brown, they're black. We need to get rid of them. We need to get rid of their history. We need to stop talking about them. Okay, if you want to stop talking about black people, why your ancestors bring them over here? Hmm? Why did your family bring them on a boat and make them slaves and murder them? Think about it. Think about history. We've all had cultures that have done bad things. And Trumpkin's grandfather and dad were part of lynchings. Lynching people for no reason. Why would you do that? Why would you harm a person like that? All because of their color, their skin, or what they are? I mean, it's pathetic. Even some of the military following them along. Really? You're not a part of our freaking military. Our military is supposed to protect us, but yet they're going to other countries, and we're naked over here. How many more people have to die? How many? How many more people with illnesses have to die? Should I show you where our daughter's grave is? Should I show you where she's at? Should I dig her up? Do you want to see pictures of her? Because one of my sisters sent me pictures of her after she did Mariah's makeup for her funeral. Do you want to see her in her casket? Is that when you're going to care? So I don't care what I say about maggot people. I don't care what I say about that Donnie Dinky Doink child rapist. I don't care. What's he going to do to me and my family that doesn't have hardly anything? What's he going to do? See, he likes to hide behind people. That's what he's doing because he can't do it himself. He's pathetic. Not even his own niece likes him. And I bet you he's paying so many people just to protect his butt. And a lot of people like me are sick and tired of the hate. Sick and tired of innocent people dying. Our daughter's gone because there's no cure. Not enough funding, the pediatrics oncologist told me. 1% of funding goes to kids. 1. The rest goes to other things. So, if Mariah was here, she would tell you the same thing. How pathetic it is to go bomb a country, trying to force another country to be a state. Sorry, Jack. Canada can't be a state. It's too damn big. We may have more states than they do because we're tiny and little pieces, but they got bigger states. They're big. And Canada's one of those ones you should not mess with. Like that. They're not doing nothing wrong to us. Mexico's not doing anything wrong to us. But yet, you want to send them back to Mexico? They're still part of North America, stupid. You want to send them to Guatemala and Ecuador and all that shit? They're still part of America. Us people that are protesting and stuff are not with you people. We're not for, if it was a Democrat involved with Jeffrey Epstein, they deserve to go to prison too. So quit saying that Democrats, oh, if it was a Democrat, they would protect them. No, you're protecting a child rapist, serial child rapist who was friends with another serial rapist who paid $1 billion to Jeffrey Epstein. And all these survivors, I'm calling them survivors, not not victims. They're survivors. I know what it's like to be hurt like that. What it's like to have family members hurt like that. And we're just surviving. So my heart goes out to all the survivors from the Jeffrey Epstein and that other serial rapist, the orange douchebag, Dickinson. Donnie Twat. That's his name, Donnie Twat. Spread that around. His new name is Donnie Twat. Mariah would laugh her ass off if I told her that. She got a lot of my personality, and that was a good thing. Because she was one of my best friends. Our kids are our friends, family, we love them to death. And those parents that don't love their kids and they're hurting them, you don't deserve them at all. Why have them if you're going to hurt them? But anyways, if you feel alone, lost and confused, you should get Mariah's book. I've read almost 8 chapters. I'm tired of reading right now. I gotta go do my homework. It's important. All those kids that have homework need to do it because it's important. School's important so you can learn. If you're at home and your parents are teaching you and they know how to do it, great. I don't know how to do it, but there's some kids that need that interaction face to face and they need extra help. That's why there's the Department of Education, because it helps with that. Kids with learning disabilities, kids who can't afford to eat, they get free lunches, free breakfast. There's kids that don't even have food at home. And what's her name? Linda McMahon. She wants to get rid of the Department of Education. She wants to fire a bunch of people that busted their ass taking care of kids. Making sure these kids who don't fall behind, these kids who have learning disabilities, it helped Mariah. She wouldn't have been able to graduate high school if it wasn't for the Department of Education. So yeah, I can't stand Linda McMahon. I can't stand Vince McMahon either. I do watch wrestling, but you know what? I'm just wondering why wrestlers don't stand up to that. That's my question. Like, is their job that important to keep doing it? There's some that don't like Vince McMahon. You can tell. He's a predator too. He's friends with Trumpkin. Think about it. Then there's R. Kelly and Poopy Doopy, who's in prison. Yeah, he should stay there and be somebody else's biatch. Because that's what he is. And then people blame Michael Jackson. Yeah, Mariah was a fan of Michael Jackson too. So am I. I've been a fan since I was a kid. And he was blamed for that? He was blamed for molestation when he didn't even do it? He was murdered. To keep quiet. He was an informant trying to find out and try to save these kids. And where the hell were these parents at? Are people asking that question? Because if Mariah was sitting right here, she'd be asking that question. Where the hell were their parents? Where? Kids are precious. And they're a part of you. Even though some of them think, nah, I'm nothing like my parents at all. Sometimes me and my husband hear our kids talk and it's like, I just said that like a little bit ago and they're just saying the same things. Or their mannerisms or, You know, the way they smile or laugh. Mariah was definitely a lot like me, even though she was a Taurus and I'm a Cancer Gemini. And I'm glad Mariah wrote her book to inspire others. And she actually is one of the people that inspired me to do school again. I'm doing art, and I appreciate Academy of Art University because they have been helping me. And but my husband's been helping too. Best way we can. And then once I get my associate's degree, I'm going to be happy to get my illustrations associate's degree. Because Mariah can't do it. She's not here to go to college. Her life mattered, just like others. And I'm going to keep talking about her every day if I have to. And stand up for all these people protesting because they're not getting paid. So you people need to stop saying they're getting paid because they're not. If they were getting paid, don't you think they'd be rich by now? You know, these people have lost their jobs. They lost their families. They're losing their homes. And you think you're not? What do you have in common with a billionaire? Nothing. I think Eminem said that right. He said, effing nothing. And you know what? He's right. And I really like that song, F Donald Trump. It's a good song. You should hear it. I mean, I would play it right now, but it might be inappropriate. It's a great song. I would look on Spotify, you know. Spotify and YouTube are really good places to look for music because I do listen to a lot of music on here. I do watch other people, you know, on their YouTube channels like Midas Touch, Brian Tyler Cohen, this guy named Luke, different ones. But yeah, I keep looking that way because I keep hearing people talk. But anyways, don't give up. And if that Donnie Twat looks like he's listening to you and you want to quit protesting, don't. Because he's scum. I mean, Nostradamus even said, if you read that book, California was going to burn. And then there was going to be, they say, the Antichrist or something like, going to destroy our country and lose all his money. And then there's going to be a woman president. Think about it. California was burning, right? Trump cheated. We all know it. And President Kamala Harris, I'm calling her president. I'm not calling him president. And you want to disrespect me like because I say that? I don't care. Because there's a lot of us that say the same thing. His name is Donnie Twat. Spread that around. Donnie Twat. You know, if you put a sign that says President Kamala Harris right in front of Washington, a big, gigantic sign that says, this is our real president, President Kamala Harris. And if I had an opportunity to talk to her, I would tell her that. I would be like, he cheated. I know he cheated. My neighbors, they talk too much. Anyways, please buy Mariah's book. It's a good book. And I read almost 8 chapters, and I'm like, I still want to read it. Keep going. It's the second time I've read it. And please, please buy it. It's a good book. I'm not just saying that because other people bought it and said, wow, your guys' daughter wrote that? And she was 19. She was an amazing young woman. She was still a kid, but not yet a woman, you know, like Britney Spears' song. If I got a chance to talk to Brittany, I would want to ask her, "Are you okay?" I mean, people need to ask her that and go visit her home instead of assuming what's going on, because a lot of people have said, "Well, she did a DUI and she did this, she did that. Look at her, she's partying with the so and so." Why don't you guys just go check on her? I mean, you're part of paparazzi, right? Go to her house, knock on her door, see if she'll answer. And if she's hanging out with her kids, that's a good thing. You know, she deserves to be around her kids. I mean, her ex is like scum. She's gone through a lot and people judge her. You know, until you're in that situation, you have no right to judge. You have no right to say she belongs on a conservative ship. Do you know what a conservative ship is for? It's for people that can't speak for themselves, people that are paralyzed and, can't talk and stuff like that. She can talk, she can walk, she can sing. And you judge her because you think she's crazy. That's one of the things that Mariah was afraid of, that people would judge her because she went from walking to being in a wheelchair and being sick. She was afraid they were going to make fun of her on her graduation day. I found a letter she wrote. These kids don't deserve it. And that's why she wrote her book. So all those survivors from Jeffrey Epstein and Donnie Twat, my heart goes out to you, and my heart goes out to all the families that have lost loved ones because of them. Our country's falling apart because of that orange douche. And he's hiding behind people, and he thinks he's king. Nah, you're not king of the United States. No, you're not. And you're not tough. You're just pathetic. And all those that want to follow him, you're just as pathetic as he is. Our daughter's gone because there's no cure. Get it? She would be here if there was a cure. When are you guys going to realize and take your heads out of Donnie Twat's ass and realize so many people are dying and they need cures? And our kids get 1%? Is that how much our kids matter? Yeah, our daughter's gone. She's dead. She's buried in the ground. And the only way we can visit her is at a cemetery. And all we have is her stuff that she left behind. Are you going to bring our children back? Because you can't. They're gone. Does another person have to get shot by ICE and dragged and harassed? Because in my state, they're not allowed. My state's not funding them. So, it's funny how now we have more funding for our state. The only state that actually has free childcare. If you want your child to be in daycare, preschool, it's free. We're the only state that does that. And I'm glad our representative, she's fighting like hell. And congratulations to all those people that are turning red states to blue, because more power to you. Red's kind of like, yeah. It's too bad we can't make it purple. And our flag, red, white, and blue, that copies like other countries. So I think our flag should have all kinds of countries on it, because America's a continent, and people keep saying, yeah, we're in part of the United States, we're Americans, but yet you got two other countries on the other side of you. I swear Mariah would be laughing in your guys' face for that crap. She didn't want to spread hate. She wanted people to get along and appreciate people. She mattered. She mattered to me and our family and to friends. Other people's kids matter. So if your kid just got diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma cancer, my heart goes out to you because it is a hard cancer. And if you are going through that yourself, you're not alone. You know, the doctor said that it's rare. It's not rare. 10 people a day are diagnosed with it. And I read people's stories and it's sad. Why do they have to bury their kids? Why? Why do they have to go through the hurt and pain and not having them anymore? That's why Mariah wrote her book. She wanted her book to go to people that were going through illnesses and stuff like that, or just want to read it. Read her book, buy it. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, all over the world. If you look up The End of the Rose by Mariah, and keep fighting. Don't quit. Because Mariah, she was a fighter. And she never quit. Up until the day she passed away. Oh, y'all have a good day. And spread that name around. Donnie Twat. It'd be so funny. And put a sign in front of the White House that says President Kamala Harris. That would be funny. It'd be cool if Jasmine Crockett was president, huh? The way she is, the way she talks. These women that are coming out being tough. Maybe it is time for a woman president. It'd be nice to have one. Because, no offense to some men, but they kind of ruined our country. Especially twats. I am against fascism. I'm against oligarchy. So, yeah. We didn't teach our kids to hate. Why are you teaching yours? And those that haven't, I give you a lot of props for that because you love them. I'll probably do another video in memory of Mariah soon. I miss her. But every time I listen to Mariah Carey or Miley or Taylor Swift or Fausia, Michael Jackson, watch Disney movies, wrestling, it reminds me of Mariah a lot. I wish my family wasn't going through this pain. I don't wish anybody go through pain losing their child. Thank you.